Weakness is your greatest protection. Stay small, stay silent, and you'll stay safe. That's what Kira's grandmother whispered to her on the night everything changed. The night the wolves came, the night the pack wars began. But Kira would learn that silence wasn't just protection, it was a prison. And the bars of that prison were built from her own lies. For 7 years, she pretended. 7 years of holding her tongue when insults flew. 7 years of watching lips move without responding. 7 years of being invisible in a world where only the strong survived. They called her the silent shadow, the broken Omega, the girl too damaged to even speak her own name. But Kira wasn't broken, she was hiding. And when the Alpha King came to her forgotten corner of the Thornwood pack, when his silver eyes locked onto hers with recognition that shouldn't have been possible, when his voice cut through the crowd like a blade. That one. Bring her to me. Kira realized something terrifying. Her silence had kept her safe from everyone except the one wolf who mattered most. The one wolf who could smell a lie from 1,000 miles away. The one wolf who was about to shatter every carefully constructed wall she'd built. Because Alpha King Darien Shadowmere didn't just rule the 5 territories. He didn't just command armies and broker peace between warring packs. He collected secrets. And Kira had just become his most fascinating mystery. Before we begin Kira's journey, a quick note. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, if you've struggled to find peace after deep hurt, there's a resource that might help. This book, How to Find Peace After Being Betrayed by Someone You Trusted. A Woman's Path to Letting Go and Reclaiming Her Power, offers practical guidance for healing and moving forward. You'll find the link in the description below. Now, let's dive into Kira's story of transformation from silence to strength. Chapter 1. The Girl Who Couldn't Speak. 7 years ago, Kira learned that being invisible was better than being dead. She stood now in the corner of the Thornwood Pack's common hall, her eyes downcast, her hands folded in front of her worn apron. Around her, wolves laughed and drank and celebrated another successful hunt. The smell of roasted meat made her stomach clench with hunger, but she didn't move toward the tables. Omegas like her ate last. If there was anything left. Look at her, someone muttered nearby, standing there like a ghost. Does she even know we're having a celebration? Can't hear us anyway, another voice responded with a cruel laugh. Deaf and dumb since birth, poor thing. Her grandmother should have left her in the woods when she had the chance. Kira's fingers tightened slightly, the only outward sign that she'd heard every word. Because that was the thing about her condition. The condition everyone believed was real. People said the cruelest things when they thought you couldn't hear them. She'd learned more secrets in 7 years of silence than most wolves learned in a lifetime. Kira. The sharp voice cut through the noise, and Kira's head snapped up. Luna Margot stood at the edge of the crowd, her perfectly manicured hand beckoning impatiently. The pack's Luna was beautiful in the way a rose was beautiful, lovely to look at, deadly to touch. Kira moved quickly, weaving through the crowd with practiced ease. She kept her eyes down, her movements small and unobtrusive. When she reached Luna Margot, she curtsied low and waited. Luna Margot's lips moved in exaggerated slowness, the way people spoke to her when they remembered she was supposed to be reading lips. Clean up the mess in the kitchens. The hunters were animals today, and I won't have my hall looking like a war zone when the Alpha King arrives tomorrow. Kira's heart stuttered, but her face remained blank. She nodded obediently and turned toward the kitchens. The Alpha King, coming here, to Thornwood. She'd heard the rumors, of course. Everyone had. Alpha King Darien Shadowmere was touring the territories, assessing each pack's loyalty and strength after the rebellion 3 months ago. Some packs had sided with the rogues, some had stayed faithful, and some, like Thornwood, had sat on the fence, waiting to see who would win before declaring their allegiance. Kira suspected the Alpha King wasn't coming for a friendly visit. The kitchen was exactly as Luna Margot had described, a disaster. Blood and bones and scraps of meat covered every surface. The hunters had butchered their kills here, too lazy or too drunk to use the proper facilities outside. Kira rolled up her sleeves and began to work. Her hands moved methodically, scrubbing and cleaning, but her mind was elsewhere. 7 years. 7 years of this charade. 7 years of biting her tongue when her younger half-sister, Lydia, was praised for her beauty and grace. 7 years of watching her stepmother, Luna Margot, lavish attention on her golden child while treating Kira like a shameful secret. 7 years since the night grandmother Elena had grabbed her arms, eyes wild with fear, and said, "Listen to me, child. The wars are coming. Alpha Silas will purge anyone with your gifts. You must hide, pretend you're broken, pretend you're nothing. It's the only way you'll survive." Kira had been 12 years old. She hadn't understood then, hadn't understood why having the gift, the ability to hear thoughts, to sense emotions, to know truth from lies, was dangerous enough to warrant a lifetime of pretending. But she understood now. Alpha Silas, Thornwood's Alpha and her stepfather, had murdered 17 wolves in the purge. 17 wolves, who had unnatural abilities. 17 wolves who threatened his power structure simply by existing. Grandmother Elena had been one of them. Kira scrubbed harder, her jaw clenched against the memories. The blood on the kitchen floor seemed to spread instead of disappearing, and for a moment, she was 12 years old again, standing in Grandmother Elena's cottage, watching the life drain from the only person who'd ever loved her. "Should have stayed quiet, old woman," Alpha Silas had said, wiping his claws clean on Elena's curtains. "Should have kept your gifts to yourself." Then his eyes had landed on Kira, huddled in the corner. "What about the girl? Deaf and dumb since birth." Margot had answered quickly, too quickly. "Completely useless. She can't even link with the pack mind. No threat to anyone." Alpha Silas had stared at Kira for a long moment, his eyes cold and calculating. Then he'd nodded. "Keep her in the kitchens. Out of sight." And just like that, Kira's grandmother had saved her life even in death. Because Margot, desperate to get rid of her husband's child from his first mate, had lied, had created a cover story that made Kira worthless enough to ignore. A crash from the dining hall jolted Kira back to the present. She froze, listening. "The Alpha King's advance guard just arrived," someone shouted. "They're inspecting the territory tonight, not tomorrow." Panic rippled through the pack bond, a sensation Kira could feel despite pretending she couldn't access it. She'd learned to build walls in her mind, to appear disconnected from the invisible threads that bound pack members together, but she could still feel them. Could still sense the fear spreading like wildfire. "Where's Alpha Silas? Someone find the Luna. Get the Omega brat out of sight. We can't have her shuffling around when royalty's here." Footsteps pounded toward the kitchen, and Kira quickly ducked into the pantry, making herself small behind a stack of supply crates. Through the crack in the door, she watched as wolves ran past, their faces taut with anxiety. The Alpha King was here early. Why? Unless he already knew something. Unless this wasn't just an inspection. Kira's breath came faster. She needed to stay hidden, needed to stay invisible. The Alpha King was said to have abilities that made the old gifts look like parlor tricks. They said he could see through any deception, sense any lie, command any wolf with just his voice. If he looked at her, really looked at her, would he see through 7 years of carefully constructed lies? The kitchen door burst open. "Search everywhere," a deep, authoritative voice commanded. "The Alpha King wants a full accounting of every pack member. No one gets missed." Kira pressed herself further into the shadows, her heart hammering against her ribs. Heavy footsteps moved through the kitchen, systematic and thorough. A figure appeared in front of the pantry door. Through the crack, Kira saw him, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and sharp features. He wore the silver insignia of the King's Guard on his chest. His eyes scanned the pantry with practiced efficiency. Then they locked onto hers. Kira didn't breathe, didn't move. She stared back with the blank, slightly unfocused gaze she'd perfected over the years, the look of someone who wasn't quite all there. The guard's expression shifted from alertness to something like pity. He opened his mouth to speak, then seemed to remember something. His hands moved in clumsy sign language. "Come out. King's orders." Kira blinked slowly, as if she didn't understand, as if the world was just shapes and shadows to her. The guard sighed and reached in, gently taking her arm. He pulled her out of the pantry with surprising care, treating her like something fragile that might break. "Found one hiding in here." he called out. Looks like an Omega. Probably scared. Another guard appeared. Margot's daughter? The broken one, yeah. I've heard about her. Can't hear or speak. Should we bring her to the gathering? The king said everyone. Kira let them lead her, keeping her body language submissive and confused. They brought her through the hall now packed with every member of the Thornwood pack, and positioned her near the back with the other Omegas. Lydia stood near the front with Luna Margot, her golden hair perfectly arranged, her dress immaculate. She looked like a princess. When her eyes found Kira in the crowd, her lips curved in a small, cruel smile. Then the hall fell silent, the kind of silence that pressed against your ears, the kind that made your wolf instincts scream danger. Alpha King Darian Shadowmere entered the hall. Kira had heard descriptions, had heard people say he was handsome, powerful, intimidating. But words didn't prepare her for the reality. He moved like darkness given form, his presence sucking the air from the room. Silver eyes not gray, but genuine silver, like moonlight on steel, swept over the assembled pack, with an expression of bored assessment. He was tall enough to make Alpha Silas look small, young enough that his rise to power must have been meteoric. And when he spoke, every wolf in the room felt the command in his voice down to their bones. "Thornwood Pack," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the space. "I am not here for pleasantries. 3 months ago, during the Rogue Rebellion, intelligence suggests members of this pack provided aid to my enemies. I am here to root out the traitors." A collective shudder ran through the crowd. "I will be interviewing each of you," the Alpha King continued. "And I will know if you lie. My gift sees truth. There is no deception you can hide from me." Kira's blood turned to ice. His gift sees truth. No. If he interviewed her, if he really looked at her with those silver eyes that could strip away lies. "We'll start with the Alpha family," King Darian said, his gaze landing on Alpha Silas and Luna Margot. "Then work our way down the hierarchy." His eyes swept over the crowd again, casual but thorough. And then they stopped. On her. Kira felt the weight of his attention like a physical force. Those silver eyes locked onto hers across the crowded hall, and for a moment, just a moment, something flickered in his expression. Recognition? Impossible. They'd never met. Curiosity? Maybe. The Alpha King's head tilted slightly, like a predator catching an unfamiliar scent. Then Alpha Silas was speaking, drawing the king's attention away, and Kira could breathe again. But she knew. She knew with absolute certainty that had just sealed her fate. The Alpha King had noticed her, and wolves like him didn't stop hunting once they'd caught a scent. Chapter 2. The King's Scrutiny. The interviews began at dawn. Kira had spent the night in the Omega Quarters, a cramped room in the basement that housed 6 other low-ranking wolves. None of them had slept. The fear was too thick, too suffocating. "They say he can smell guilt," whispered Petra, a young Omega who worked in the stables. "They say his eyes turn black when he finds a traitor," and then, she drew a finger across her throat. "I heard he killed 30 wolves in the Riverside Pack," another voice added from the darkness. "Lined them up and executed them one by one when they couldn't prove their loyalty." Kira lay on her thin mattress, staring at the ceiling. Her mind raced through scenarios, through possibilities, through 7 years of carefully maintained lies that were about to crumble under the weight of silver eyes that saw truth. She could run, could slip away before dawn, disappear into the forest, live as a rogue. But rogues didn't last long. Not in this territory. Not with the king's patrols hunting anyone who fled his questioning. No. Running would only confirm guilt, would only draw attention. She had to stay. Had to maintain her facade. Had to pray that the Alpha King's gift, whatever it was, couldn't penetrate 7 years of practiced deception. When the summons came, it wasn't for her. A guard appeared at the Omega Quarters just after sunrise. "Petra Millstone. You're wanted in the interrogation room." Petra went pale. She looked at Kira with wide, terrified eyes, and Kira wished not for the first time that she could offer comfort, could speak words of reassurance, but the silent shadow didn't speak. Petra was gone for 2 hours. When she returned, she was shaking but alive. "He asked about the rebellion," she whispered to the others, her voice hoarse. about whether I'd seen anyone acting suspicious, passing messages, meeting with strangers. She swallowed hard. He looked at me, and I felt like he was reading every thought I'd ever had, every secret, every lie. Did you pass? Someone asked. I'm still here, aren't they? Petra's laugh was brittle. But Sarah from the laundry, they took her away in chains. She'd been passing information to her rogue brother. The king knew before she even opened her mouth. The room fell silent. One by one, the Omegas were called. One by one, they returned, or they didn't. Kira waited, watched, listened to the fear growing in the pack bond, to the whispers of who had been taken, who had been cleared, who had simply vanished. By midday, 12 wolves had been arrested. By sunset, the number had grown to 20. And still, Kira hadn't been called. She worked in the kitchens, preparing meals for the king's guard, keeping her head down and her movements small. Several times, she felt eyes on her, that prickling sensation of being watched, but when she looked up, there was no one there. Or rather, no one obvious. Because the Alpha King's presence permeated the entire pack house now. She could feel him even when she couldn't see him. Could sense his power like a storm on the horizon. Building and building. It was late evening when Luna Margot found her. Kira was scrubbing pots in the kitchen, her hands raw from the hot water and harsh soap. She didn't hear Margot approach, pretended not to, at least until the Luna's perfectly manicured hand grabbed her shoulder and spun her around. Margot's lips moved in exaggerated slowness. The king wants to see you. Kira's heart stopped. She stared at Margot blankly, as if she hadn't understood. Margot's expression twisted with impatience. She grabbed Kira's arm hard enough to bruise and dragged her out of the kitchen, through the corridors, toward the Alpha's study that had been commandeered for the interrogations. Listen to me, Margot hissed, her voice low and venomous. She'd stopped pretending to sign, which meant she thought Kira couldn't hear anyway. I don't know why the king asked for you specifically, but if you do anything to embarrass this family, I will make the rest of your miserable life even worse than it already is. She shoved Kira toward the study door, then knocked sharply. Enter, came the response. That voice deep, commanding, impossible to ignore. Margot opened the door and pushed Kira inside, then left without another word. The study was smaller than Kira expected, darker. A single lamp burned on the desk, casting long shadows across the walls, and behind the desk, silhouetted against the window, sat the Alpha King. Darian Shadowmere looked up from the papers in front of him, and those silver eyes found her immediately. Close the door, he said. Kira stood frozen. She'd been practicing her blank expression all day, her unfocused stare, but now faced with him directly, it took every ounce of control not to react. The Alpha King's eyes narrowed slightly. He stood, moving around the desk with fluid grace. He was even taller up close, and the power radiating from him made her wolf whimper and cower inside her mind. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell him pine and snow and something wild that made her instinct scream both danger and want. You're Kira, he said. Not a question, a statement. Alpha Silas's stepdaughter, the one who can't hear or speak. Kira stared at his chin, not meeting his eyes. She nodded slowly, the way someone who'd read his lips would respond. Look at me. It was a command, not a request. The kind of order that her wolf couldn't refuse even if she wanted to. Slowly, reluctantly, Kira raised her eyes to his. Silver met brown. The world seemed to stop. The Alpha King studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. His head tilted slightly, and something flickered across his expression. Confusion, suspicion. Interesting, he murmured. Then, without warning, he moved behind her. Kira's breath caught. She couldn't see him now, couldn't read his lips, couldn't maintain the illusion. Tell me. His voice came from directly behind her left ear, barely above a whisper. Why is your heart racing? She didn't react, couldn't react. If she was truly deaf, she wouldn't have heard him. A pause. Then his voice came from her right side, equally soft. Why are you trembling? Fear. She could claim fear. Any wolf would be terrified in this situation. But Kira kept her expression blank, her body still. just a frightened Omega who couldn't understand what was happening. The Alpha King moved to stand in front of her again. His eyes roamed her face, searching for something. "You can't hear me," he said, his voice normal volume now. "Can't speak, can't link with the pack mind, completely cut off from the world." Kira nodded, kept her eyes slightly unfocused, the way someone who relied on lip reading might. "And yet," he continued, his voice dropping to something dangerous, "when I entered the hall yesterday, you reacted. Before I spoke. Before anyone could have told you who I was." Her heart hammered against her ribs. She forced herself to look confused, to tilt her head as if she didn't understand. The Alpha King stepped closer, so close that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I'm going to tell you something, little Omega. A secret." His silver eyes bored into hers. "My gift doesn't just see lies, it sees truth, and the truth about you is complicated." He reached out slowly, giving her time to flinch away if she wanted. When she couldn't, without breaking character, his hand came up to her face. One finger traced the line of her jaw, feather light. "You're hiding something," he whispered. "Something big. Something that makes you different from every other wolf in this pack." Kira's mind raced. How much did he know? How much had he guessed? "But here's what I can't figure out," he continued, his hand dropping away. "If you're a traitor, if you help the rogues, I would see it, would feel it. But when I look at you, all I see is..." He paused, frustration creeping into his voice. Fear, genuine, bone-deep fear, not the fear of being caught, the fear of being seen. He stepped back, putting distance between them. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted back to formal, commanding. "You'll stay close to me during my time here. You'll assist my guards with whatever they need. Consider it your assignment." Kira's eyes widened. She shook her head frantically, pointing to herself, then to the kitchens, trying to communicate that she belonged in the kitchens, not anywhere near him. "That wasn't a request," the Alpha King said coldly. "You're dismissed. Report to Commander Thorne at dawn." He turned away, returning to his desk, effectively ending the conversation. Kira stood frozen for another moment, then bobbed a clumsy curtsy and fled. She didn't stop until she was back in the Omega quarters, her back pressed against the wall, her whole body shaking. He knew. He didn't know what, exactly. But he knew she was hiding something, and now he was keeping her close. Where he could watch her. Where he could study her. Where she couldn't hide. "Kira?" Petra's voice came from across the room. "Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." Kira slid down the wall, wrapping her arms around her knees. She couldn't answer, couldn't explain. Because the Alpha King hadn't just seen through her lies. He'd made it his mission to uncover them, and there was nowhere left to run. The next morning came too quickly. Kira reported to Commander Thorne as ordered, her stomach twisted in knots. The commander was a stern-faced man with gray streaking his temples and eyes that missed nothing. "You're the deaf one," he said, not unkindly. Then he seemed to remember and started signing badly. "You'll help organize supplies. Follow me." For 3 days, Kira worked under the watchful eyes of the King's Guard. She sorted weapons, counted inventory, prepared meals for the soldiers. Simple tasks that kept her busy and visible. And always, she felt him watching. The Alpha King appeared at random times, sometimes in the armory where she was cleaning swords, sometimes in the courtyard where she was hauling water, sometimes in the corridors, appearing around corners like a shadow. He never spoke to her directly again, but his eyes tracked her movements with unnerving focus. On the 4th day, everything changed. Kira was in the storage room, organizing medical supplies, when she heard voices in the adjacent chamber. The walls were thin, and the voices carried, "Your Majesty, we've identified another traitor." Commander Thorne's voice. "One of the Beta families. They've been hiding a rogue sympathizer in their basement." "Who?" The Alpha King's voice, cold and sharp. "The daughter. Elena Thornbrook. She's been passing information for months." Kira's hands stilled. Elena Thornbrook. She knew that name. Elena was 17, barely more than a child. Her family was desperate, poor, struggling to survive after her father died in the wars. Bring her in, the Alpha King commanded. Kira closed her eyes. Another arrest. Another life destroyed. But then, wait. The Alpha King's voice had changed. There's something off about this. The evidence is circumstantial. The testimony comes from only one source. Luna Margot's testimony, Your Majesty. She claims to have seen the girl meeting with rogues in the forest. A pause. Then, Luna Margot, who's been remarkably helpful in pointing out traitors these past few days. Almost too helpful. Your Majesty? How many arrests have come from her testimony alone? 7, I believe. And how many of those arrested were from families who opposed Alpha Silas during his rise to power? Another pause. Longer. All of them. Interesting. The word dripped with dark promise. It seems Luna Margot has been using my presence to eliminate her husband's political rivals. How convenient. Kira's breath caught. He'd figured it out. The Alpha King had seen through Margot's manipulation. What are your orders, Your Majesty? Bring me Luna Margot. And bring me her daughter Lydia, isn't it? Let's see how well they fare under real scrutiny. Footsteps retreated. Silence fell. Kira should have moved. Should have returned to her work. But she was frozen, processing what she'd heard. The Alpha King wasn't just hunting traitors. He was hunting injustice. You can come out now. Kira's blood turned to ice. The Alpha King's voice came from directly outside the storage room door. I know you're in there. And I know you heard every word. Slowly, heart pounding, Kira stepped out of the storage room. The Alpha King stood in the corridor, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Deaf, are you? He said softly. Then how did you know I was talking to you? Kira's mind raced for an explanation, an excuse, but there was none. She'd been caught. The Alpha King stepped closer. I'm going to ask you one question, and I want the truth. His silver eyes locked onto hers, and she felt his power pressing against her mind like a vice. Can you hear me right now? The command in his voice was absolute, undeniable. Her wolf whimpered and submitted before she could stop it. And Kira, after 7 years of silence, opened her mouth and spoke. Yes. The word came out rusty, barely more than a whisper, but it was there. Undeniable. The Alpha King's expression didn't change, but something flashed in his silver eyes. Triumph. Good, he said quietly. Now we can have an honest conversation. He gestured to a nearby room. After you, Kira. It's time you told me everything. And Kira, caught at last, had no choice but to obey. Chapter 3. The truth unravels. The room the Alpha King led her to was small and private, a sitting room that had once belonged to Alpha Silas's first mate, Kira's mother. She hadn't been in this room since she was a child. The memories pressed against her like ghosts. Her mother brushing her hair by the fireplace, teaching her to read, telling her stories about the old packs and their gifts. Before the sickness took her, before Silas married Margot, before everything fell apart. Sit, the Alpha King commanded, gesturing to one of the chairs. Kira remained standing. Her voice might have betrayed her, but she could still choose defiance in other ways. The Alpha King's eyebrow arched. Stubborn. He moved to the window, his back to her, a calculated show of ease that didn't fool her for a second. How long have you been pretending? Kira's throat felt raw from disuse. She swallowed, testing her voice again. 7 years. Why? To survive. He turned to face her, his silver eyes sharp. Elaborate. Kira's hands clenched into fists at her sides. Every instinct screamed at her to stay silent, to protect herself, but the weight of his command still pressed against her mind. Alpha Kings didn't just suggest, they compelled. 7 years ago, there was a purge, she said, each word feeling strange and foreign on her tongue. Alpha Silas killed anyone with unusual abilities, gifts that predated the modern pack structure. My grandmother was one of them. What was her gift? Truth sensing. She could hear lies like they were out of tune in a song. Kira met his eyes. Like you, I suspect. Something flickered in the Alpha King's expression. Acknowledgement, perhaps. Or respect. And you inherited this gift. It wasn't a question, but Kira nodded anyway. Not exactly the same. Mine is broader. I can sense emotions through the pack bond even when I'm not supposed to be connected. I can hear thoughts if someone's projecting strongly enough. And yes, I can tell truth from lies. So you hid. Pretended to be deaf and mute so you wouldn't be killed. The Alpha King moved closer, his footsteps silent on the carpet. Smart. Cowardly perhaps. But smart. Kira's jaw tightened. You weren't here. You didn't see what he did to them. My grandmother died, protecting me died so I could have this lie to hide behind. I won't apologize for using it. I'm not asking you to. He stopped directly in front of her. But I am curious. If you can sense lies, then you've known for days that Luna Margot has been manipulating my investigation. Why didn't you expose her? Because I can't speak, Kira said flatly. Or I couldn't. Not without revealing myself. And revealing myself meant death. Past tense, meant death. But now I know your secret. His head tilted. So, what stops me from telling Alpha Silas? Or better yet, what stops me from executing you myself for deceiving an Alpha King? Fear lanced through her, but Kira forced herself to hold his gaze. Nothing. You could kill me right now, and no one would question it. I'm just an Omega. A broken one. At that, or so everyone thinks. And yet you don't beg for your life. Don't plead. Don't offer me anything in exchange for your silence. The Alpha King studied her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Why? Because begging won't change your mind if you've already decided to kill me. Kira's voice steadied, grew stronger. And if you haven't decided yet, then my death depends on whether you find me useful. Not on how prettily I can grovel. And then, silence stretched between them. Then, unexpectedly, the Alpha King laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, more surprise than amusement. 7 years of playing broken and silent, and underneath it all, you've got teeth. He turned away, moving back to the window. You're right. I haven't decided what to do with you yet. But I am curious about something. What? If you could sense that Margot was lying, could sense the corruption in this pack, why stay? You're clever enough to have escaped. To have disappeared into the territories and started fresh somewhere else. Kira was quiet for a moment. The truth sat heavy on her tongue. Because I'm a coward, she said finally. Because I was 12 when my grandmother died, and the thought of being alone in the world terrified me more than staying in a place where I was invisible. Because... She paused. Because this was my mother's pack, and leaving felt like abandoning the last piece of her. The Alpha King was silent, his back still to her. And, Kira continued, her voice dropping, because I kept hoping it would get better. That one day, Silas would be held accountable. That one day, someone would see what was really happening here. She laughed bitterly. I guess I should be careful what I wish for. Indeed. The Alpha King turned back to her. Because now someone does see. And that someone is me. He crossed his arms. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to continue your charade. What? But with a modification. Around everyone else, you remain the silent shadow. Deaf, mute, invisible. But when we're alone, you speak. You tell me everything you sense. Every lie, every deception, every hidden truth in this pack. His silver eyes pinned her in place. You're going to be my secret weapon, Kira. And in exchange, I won't expose you. Kira's mind raced. You want me to spy for you. I want you to help me root out the real corruption here. Because I suspect Luna Margot's manipulations are only the surface. He moved closer again, his presence overwhelming. I can sense lies, yes. But I can't read the pack bond like you can. Can't sense emotions or hear thoughts. You have a gift I don't. And I need it. And if I refuse, then I tell Alpha Silas that his broken stepdaughter has been deceiving everyone for 7 years. And we both know how he deals with gifted wolves. The Alpha King's voice was matter of fact, not threatening, which somehow made it worse. But you won't refuse. Because you're not actually a coward, Kira. A coward wouldn't have survived 7 years of this. A coward wouldn't have looked me in the eye just now and told me the truth even when it might get her killed. He was right. Damn him, he was right. What do you want to know? Kira asked quietly. The Alpha King smiled a sharp, predatory expression. Everything. Start with Alpha Silas. What's he hiding? Kira closed her eyes, reaching out with her gift for the first time in years without fear of being caught. The pack bond sprawled before her like a web, each thread a connection to a pack member. She found Silas's thread thick and dark and pulsing with ugly emotions. He's terrified, she said. Has been since you arrived. Not because of the rebellion he didn't support the rogues, but because he's been embezzling from the pack funds for years, skimming off the top of every trade agreement, every tax collection. He's got a fortune hidden away in case he needs to run. Where? A safe house. 2 territories over, in the neutral zone. Under a false name, Gideon Thorne. The Alpha King's expression darkened. Gideon Thorne. My commander's name. He thought it was clever. Thought if anyone investigated, the paper trail would lead to confusion. Kira opened her eyes. It won't work, not against you. No, it won't. The Alpha King pulled out a small notebook and began writing. What else? For the next hour, Kira talked. She told him about the corruption in the pack, about the families Margot had targeted for political gain, about the wolves who'd been falsely accused and imprisoned. She told him about the beta who was stealing from the armory to sell weapons on the black market, about the gamma who'd been having an affair with Silas's chief enforcer, about the dozens of small betrayals and lies that had woven themselves into the fabric of Thornwood Pack. The Alpha King listened, wrote, asked pointed questions, and slowly, the picture of a deeply broken pack emerged. Your stepmother, he said finally. Luna Margot. What's her endgame? Kira hesitated. This was the dangerous part. She wants Lydia to be Luna of a stronger pack, wants to marry her off to someone more powerful than Silas. Kira swallowed. She's been trying to catch your attention since you arrived, parading Lydia in front of you at every opportunity. The Alpha King's lip curled in disgust. I noticed. The girl is beautiful but vapid, and her ambition stinks of desperation. His eyes sharpened on Kira. Does Margot know about your gift? No. She thinks I'm exactly what I appear to be, a burden she's stuck with until I die or disappear. Good. Then she won't suspect you're helping me. The Alpha King closed his notebook. Tonight, there's a formal dinner. The pack's elite will be there. You'll serve. As usual. And you'll tell me everything you sense. How? I can't exactly whisper in your ear in front of everyone. A slow smile spread across the Alpha King's face. No. But you can write. He pulled a small piece of paper from his pocket and a pencil. Keep these hidden. When you sense something important, write it down. Fold the paper small. Then, when you're refilling my wine glass, drop it beside my plate. I'll handle the rest. Kira took the paper and pencil, tucking them into her apron pocket. This is dangerous. Yes. If Margot or Silas suspect, they won't. Because you've spent 7 years perfecting your disguise. Don't stop now. The Alpha King moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. What? He turned back to her, and for the first time, something almost like approval showed in his silver eyes. Your grandmother would be proud of you. Using her gift to bring down the wolves who killed her, there's poetry in that. The words hit Kira like a physical blow. Her throat tightened with unexpected emotion. The Alpha King opened the door, his expression returning to its usual cold mask. Remember, around everyone else, you're still broken, still silent. Can you do that? Kira nodded, slipping back into the blank expression, the unfocused gaze, the submissive posture. The transformation was instant and complete. The Alpha King studied her for a moment, then nodded. Good. Dismissed. Kira curtsied and left, her mind whirling. She'd gone from hiding for her survival to actively using her gift against her enemies, from invisible to indispensable, from prey to hunter. And the most dangerous part? She was starting to trust the Alpha King, starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could actually change things. But trust was a luxury she'd learned to live without. And Alpha Kings, no matter how just they seemed, always had their own agendas. The formal dinner was exactly as tedious as Kira expected. The pack's elite gathered in the great hall, dressed in their finest, all desperate to impress the Alpha King. Silas sat at the head of the table, his smile too wide, his laughter too loud. Margot presided beside him, with Lydia positioned directly across from the Alpha King, close enough to be noticed, far enough to seem demure. Kira moved through the room like a ghost, refilling glasses, clearing plates, invisible to everyone except the one person who mattered. The Alpha King sat in the place of honor, his expression neutral as he endured the pack's attempts at flattery. But his silver eyes tracked Kira's movements with subtle precision. She reached out with her gift, feeling the emotions in the room. Most were straightforward nervousness, fear, ambition. But there were undercurrents. Secrets. The beta to the Alpha King's left, Jonas Clearwater, radiated guilt. Kira focused on him, listening to the threads of his thoughts. He can't let him find out about the shipment. Need to move it before he inspects the borders. Kira moved to refill his water glass, her hands steady. While everyone's attention was on Margot telling some elaborate story, she pulled the paper from her pocket and wrote quickly. Jonas Clearwater smuggling at the north border. Moving something tonight. She folded the paper into a tiny square and moved to the Alpha King's seat. As she refilled his wine, the paper dropped silently beside his plate. The Alpha King's hand moved casual, natural, and the paper disappeared. Kira continued her rounds, listening, sensing, gathering information. A Gamma couple arguing through the bond about their daughter's arranged marriage. A young wolf panicking about a secret romance with someone from another pack. An enforcer who'd accepted bribes to look the other way during border inspections. Each secret became a note. Each note found its way to the Alpha King's plate. By the end of dinner, she'd passed him 7 pieces of information, and no one had noticed a thing. Don't you think, Your Majesty? Margot's voice cut through Kira's concentration. Surely a king of your stature deserves a proper mate, someone of good breeding and grace. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The Alpha King's silver eyes lifted to Margot's face. Are you suggesting someone, Luna Margot? Margot's smile was pure calculation. Only that my daughter Lydia has been much admired. She's of excellent bloodline, well-trained in pack politics, and quite beautiful, as you can see. Lydia blushed on cue, her eyes downcast in false modesty. Kira felt the emotions rippling through the bond. Silas's approval, the other pack members' surprise, Lydia's barely contained excitement, and from the Alpha King, nothing. No emotion at all. That was somehow more terrifying than anger would have been. I see, the Alpha King said softly. And tell me, Luna Margot, does your daughter have any gifts? Any abilities beyond her physical attributes? Margot's smile faltered slightly. Gifts? The old abilities, the ones that make a wolf special, valuable. His eyes swept the table. Surely in a pack as prestigious as Thornwood, there must be someone with notable talents. The room fell silent. Several wolves shifted uncomfortably. The old gifts died out long ago, Your Majesty, Silas said quickly. We're a modern pack. We don't? The Alpha King's voice was soft but sharp. Or don't allow. Silas's face paled. I'm not sure I understand. I think you understand perfectly. The Alpha King stood, and everyone at the table immediately rose with him. Thank you for the dinner. It's been illuminating. He moved toward the door, then paused. His eyes found Kira in the corner, and something flickered in his expression, too quick for anyone else to catch. You, Omega, what's your name? Kira's heart stopped. Around the table, people stirred uncomfortably. She can't answer, Your Majesty, Margot said with barely concealed irritation. She's deaf and mute. Is she? The Alpha King moved closer to Kira, and she forced herself to remain still, to keep her expression blank. How unfortunate. To be surrounded by so much corruption and not have a voice to speak of it. He was staring directly at her, and Kira knew he wasn't talking about her fictional disability. He was telling the room exactly what he thought of them. Good night, the Alpha King said, his eyes still locked on Kira's. Then he turned and left, his guards following. The moment he was gone, the room erupted in nervous chatter. What did he mean by that? Do you think he suspects? We need to be careful. Kira slipped away in the chaos, her heart pounding. She'd just helped the Alpha King gather enough information to dismantle half the pack's leadership, And tomorrow, the real hunt would begin. Chapter 4. The hunter becomes the hunted. Kira didn't sleep that night. She lay in the Omega quarters, listening to the soft breathing of the other wolves around her, but her mind wouldn't rest. The notes she'd passed to the Alpha King, each one a potential death sentence for someone in the pack. Each one a crack in the carefully constructed facade that had protected her for 7 years. What had she done? She'd made herself useful to the most powerful wolf in the 5 territories. She'd become his spy, his secret weapon. But useful things became liabilities when they were no longer needed. Around 3 in the morning, she heard the sound of boots in the corridor above. Measured, purposeful, the King's Guard, moving with military precision. Then came the shouts. The sound of doors being kicked in. The screams. Petra sat bolt upright in her bed. What's happening? The other Omegas stirred, fear rippling through the bond. Kira rose and moved to the small window that looked out onto the courtyard. In the pre-dawn darkness, she could see torches. Figures being dragged from their homes. The King's Guard, executing arrests with brutal efficiency. Jonas Clearwater was first. They hauled him out in chains, his face pale with terror. Then, the Gamma couple who'd been taking bribes. Then 3 others whose secrets Kira had exposed. He's arresting them, Petra whispered from behind Kira. All at once. In the middle of the night. The display was intentional, Kira realized. The Alpha King wasn't just removing traitors, he was sending a message. No one was safe. No secret was hidden. And tomorrow, when the pack woke to find 6 of their prominent members gone, the real terror would begin. Because everyone would wonder, who told the Alpha King their secrets? Dawn broke cold and gray. Kira reported to her duties, keeping her head down, her expression blank. But the pack house buzzed with frantic energy. Wolves clustered in corners, whispering anxiously. The pack bond thrummed with fear and suspicion. Happened so fast. How did he know? Someone must have talked. Traitor among us. Commander Thorne found her in the kitchens. The king wants to see you. Now. Kira followed him through corridors that felt suddenly hostile. Eyes tracked her movement, suspicious, calculating. The other Omegas had noticed that she'd been called to serve the Alpha King multiple times. Had noticed she'd been in the hall during the dinner. Had noticed she was different. The commander led her to a different room this time, a private study in the West Wing. The Alpha King stood by the window, his back to the door. He didn't turn when Kira entered. "Leave us," he commanded. The commander hesitated, then nodded and closed the door. Silence stretched for a long moment. Then, 6 arrests, 3 confessions already. By noon, we'll have enough evidence to dismantle the smuggling ring that's been operating along the northern border for 2 years. The Alpha King turned, and his silver eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Your information was invaluable. Kira found her voice. The pack is terrified. They're looking for someone to blame. Let them look. Fear makes people careless. They'll reveal more secrets trying to protect themselves. He moved closer. But that's not why I called you here. We have a new problem. What kind of problem? Luna Margot cornered me this morning. She's demanding to know why I rejected her daughter's proposition. Kira's jaw tightened. What did you tell her? That I'm not in the market for a mate, but she's not accepting that answer. The Alpha King's expression darkened. She's become suspicious. She's noticed that I've been keeping you close. She started asking questions about why the Def Omega is suddenly so involved in my investigation. Cold dread settled in Kira's stomach. She suspects. Not yet, but she will, if we're not careful. He pulled out a folded piece of paper, one of the notes Kira had passed him last night. I need you to be more cautious. The pack is already looking for a traitor. If Margot connects you to the arrests, she'll tell Silas, and he'll kill me. Yes. The Alpha King studied her. Which is why you're going to do something that will seem counterintuitive. You're going to get yourself in trouble. Kira blinked. What? This afternoon, Luna Margot is hosting a tea for the pack's elite females. You'll be serving. And you're going to spill hot tea all over her daughter. You want me to, are you insane? A ghost of a smile crossed the Alpha King's face. No, I'm strategic. Right now, you're too perfect. Too useful. Too close to me. It's making people notice. But if you make a clumsy mistake, prove that you're just a broken omega, who can't even pour tea properly, then you become invisible again. Kira's mind raced through the logic. He was right. The silent shadow had never made mistakes before because she'd been too careful. But careful drew attention when everyone was paranoid. Margot will punish me, she said quietly. Yes, she'll have you whipped, probably. Maybe locked in the cellars for a few days. The Alpha King's voice was matter of fact. Can you handle it? Kira thought of her grandmother. Thought of 7 years of swallowing her pride, her voice, her very self. Thought of all the wolves who'd been hurt by Margot's manipulations and Silas's corruption. Yes, she said. I can handle it. Good. The Alpha King moved to his desk and pulled out a small vial. This is a numbing agent. It won't eliminate the pain, but it'll take the edge off. Put it on your back before the tea. The whipping will look brutal, but you'll survive it. He held out the vial, and Kira took it. Their fingers brushed, and for just a moment, she felt something flicker between them. Recognition, perhaps. The understanding of two people who knew what it meant to play dangerous games. Why are you helping me? She asked. You could accomplish your goals without protecting me. I'm just an omega. The Alpha King's silver eyes held hers. Because you remind me of someone. Someone who also had to hide what they were to survive. He paused. And because you're not just anything, Kira. You're the most honest wolf I've met in this God's forsaken pack. Even when you were lying about being deaf, you never lied about who you are. The words settled over her like a blanket, warm and uncomfortable at the same time. The tea is at 2 o'clock, the Alpha King said, his tone shifting back to business. Don't be late, and make it convincing. The tea was held in the sunroom, a bright, airy space filled with the pack's elite females. Margot presided over the gathering like a queen, with Lydia at her side looking radiant in a pale blue dress. Kira moved through the room with a heavy silver tea service, pouring carefully, keeping her movements small and submissive. She'd applied the numbing agent to her back. It tingled beneath her thin shirt, a constant reminder of what was coming. Absolutely humiliating, one of the women was saying. My husband was taken in the middle of the night, dragged out like a common criminal. Well, if he was involved in smuggling, another woman began. He wasn't. Someone lied. Someone told the king false information. The first woman's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. There's a traitor among us. Someone who's feeding that monster lies about good wolves. Kira's hands didn't shake as she poured. Her expression remained blank. I've heard the king has special abilities, Lydia said, her voice carrying across the room. They say he can read minds. That's how he knows everyone's secrets. Nonsense, Margot said sharply. He has informants, spies. Probably low-born wolves hoping to gain favor by betraying their betters. Her eyes swept the room, landing briefly on Kira. We should be more careful about who we trust. About who we allow close to our private conversations. The threat was clear. Margot was already suspicious of the servants. Kira moved to refill Lydia's cup. This was it. The moment. She thought of her grandmother. Thought of 7 years of silence. Thought of every cruel word, every casual cruelty, every moment she'd been treated as less than nothing. And then she tripped. The tea service tilted. Boiling liquid cascaded across the table and directly into Lydia's lap. Lydia screamed. The blue dress turned dark with tea. The scalding liquid soaked through fabric to skin. The room erupted in chaos. You clumsy idiot, Margot shrieked, leaping to her feet. Look what you've done. Kira dropped to her knees, her hands moving in frantic apology. Her face showed perfect horror, wide eyes, trembling lips, the look of someone who'd made a terrible accident. But inside, a small, dark part of her sang with satisfaction. Margot hauled Lydia to her feet, inspecting the damage. The girl was crying, her dress ruined, her legs red where the tea had burned. She did it on purpose. Lydia sobbed. I saw her look at me before she spilled it. The deaf one? One of the other women sounded skeptical. She can barely see straight, let alone plan sabotage. I don't care if she's deaf, blind, and stupid, Margot snarled. This is unacceptable. She turned to one of the guards stationed at the door. Take her to the punishment yard, 20 lashes, and then lock her in the cellar for 3 days. Maybe that will teach her to be more careful. The guard grabbed Kira's arm not gently and hauled her to her feet. As she was dragged from the room, Kira caught a glimpse through the doorway. The Alpha King stood in the corridor, watching. Their eyes met for just a moment. He gave her the smallest nod. Then the guard was pulling her away, down the stairs, out into the cold courtyard where the punishment post waited. They stripped her shirt and tied her hands to the post. A crowd gathered because pack punishments were always public. A reminder of what happened when you displeased your betters. Kira pressed her cheek against the rough wood and steadied her breathing. The numbing agent would help. She just had to endure. The first lash fell. Pain exploded across her back, sharp and hot, despite the numbing agent. The crowd murmured. The second lash. The third. Kira bit her tongue to keep from crying out. The silent shadow didn't make sounds. Couldn't make sounds. By the 10th lash, blood was running down her back. By the 15th, her knees were shaking. But she didn't break. Didn't scream. The 20th lash fell, and the enforcer stepped back. Pathetic. Someone in the crowd muttered. Can't even cry properly. They untied her hands and let her collapse to the ground. 2 guards hauled her up and dragged her toward the cellar entrance. Through the haze of pain, Kira saw faces in the crowd. Some showed pity. Some showed satisfaction. Some showed nothing at all. And standing at the back, half hidden in shadow, was the Alpha King. His silver eyes tracked her movement, his expression unreadable. Then she was being shoved down stone steps, into darkness, into a cold cell that smelled of mold and despair. The door slammed shut, the lock clicked, and Kira, finally alone, let herself collapse onto the dirty floor. The pain was worse than she'd expected. The numbing agent had helped during the whipping, but now it was wearing off, and every movement sent fire racing across her back. She curled into a ball on the cold stone, her body shaking. This was the price of truth. The price of fighting back, and she would pay it. Because for the first time in 7 years, she wasn't just surviving, she was winning. 3 days in the dark. 3 days with nothing but stale bread and water passed through a slot in the door. 3 days of her wounds slowly healing, her wolf working to knit torn flesh back together. But Kira didn't spend those days in despair. She spent them listening. The cellar was beneath the main pack house, and the stones carried sound. She could hear conversations from the rooms above, could sense emotions through the pack bond. And what she heard was fear. The Alpha King had arrested 6 more wolves. He'd exposed the smuggling ring, frozen the embezzled funds, and begun a full audit of the pack's finances. Alpha Silas was losing control of his own pack, and Margot was getting desperate. On the 3rd day, Kira heard her stepmother's voice drifting down from somewhere above. Must do something. He's destroying everything we've built. What do you suggest? Silas's voice, tight with strain. He's the Alpha King. We can't fight him directly, but we can undermine him, make him look weak, make him question his own judgment. A pause. We need to find his weakness. Everyone has one. The king has no weaknesses. He's Af. Everyone has weaknesses, Margot repeated, her voice sharp. Even gods bleed if you cut them right. We just need to find the right knife. Footsteps retreated. Silence fell. Kira pressed her palm against the cold stone, her mind racing. Margot was planning something that could hurt the Alpha King. And Kira, locked in the darkness, couldn't warn him. When the cellar door finally opened on the 3rd day, it wasn't a guard who came for her. It was the Alpha King himself. He filled the doorway, backlit by torchlight, his silver eyes finding her immediately in the darkness. Out, he commanded. Kira struggled to her feet, her body stiff and aching. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step agony on her healing back. The Alpha King didn't touch her, didn't help her, but he stayed close, as if ready to catch her if she fell. They emerged into a corridor empty, private. Your performance was convincing, the Alpha King said quietly. The pack has stopped looking for traitors among the Omegas. They're too busy being terrified of me. His eyes swept over her, taking in her pale face, her trembling hands. The healer will tend to your back. No, Kira said, her voice hoarse from disuse. Can't. If I heal too quickly, people will notice. The Alpha King's jaw tightened. Your wounds will heal on their own. My wolf is strong enough. Kira met his eyes. I need to tell you something. Something I heard while I was down there. She repeated the conversation between Margot and Silas, watching the Alpha King's expression darken with each word. They're planning to undermine me, he said when she finished. Find a weakness to exploit. Yes, but I don't know what they're planning. Kira swayed slightly, exhaustion catching up with her. The Alpha King's hand shot out, steadying her. His touch was surprisingly gentle. You need rest, food, proper healing. What I need is to get back to the Omega quarters before someone notices I'm gone. Kira pulled away from his grip. The Silent Shadow doesn't get private audiences with the Alpha King. The Silent Shadow just spent 3 days in the cellar for spilling tea on my behalf, the Alpha King said, his voice low and intense. I think we're past worrying about appearances. We're never past worrying about appearances. That's how people like us survive. Kira forced herself to stand straighter despite the pain. I'll keep listening. Keep watching. But you need to be careful. Margot is more dangerous than you think. The Alpha King studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled a real smile, not the cold mask he wore in public. You know what I think, Kira? What? I think you're more dangerous than you think. He stepped back, his expression returning to neutral. Go. Rest. Tomorrow, we continue the hunt. Kira nodded and turned to leave. But as she walked away, she felt his eyes on her back watching, assessing, seeing far more than she wanted him to. Because the Alpha King was right. She was dangerous. And she was starting to realize just how much power that gave her. Chapter 5, 24. The Queen's Gambit. The Omega quarters felt different when Kira returned. The other wolves looked at her with a mixture of pity and wariness. Her back was still wrapped in crude bandages, blood seeping through in dark patches. She moved stiffly, painfully, a visible reminder of what happened when you displeased your betters. Kira, Petra whispered, helping her onto her thin mattress. Are you all right? Kira nodded, keeping her expression dazed and pained. She couldn't speak here, couldn't break character even among those who might have been kind, because walls had ears, and desperate wolves had loose tongues. 20 lashes for spilling tea, another Omega muttered. Margot's always been cruel, but this. The Alpha King didn't stop it, a third voice added. Didn't even question it, some king of justice he claims to be. Kira closed her eyes, letting their words wash over her. They were wrong about the Alpha King, but she couldn't tell them that. Couldn't explain that her pain had been necessary. Strategic. Part of a larger game they couldn't see. The next morning, Kira forced herself back to work despite her body's protests. The kitchen needed her, or rather, they needed someone to do the work no one else wanted. Scrubbing pots, hauling water, tasks that made her wounds scream with every movement. But pain was clarifying. Pain kept her focused. And focus was what she needed, because something was wrong. The pack bond thrummed with an emotion she couldn't quite place. Not fear, they'd had plenty of that over the past week. This was different. Anticipation, excitement. Something was coming. Kira was scrubbing the floor in the main corridor when she overheard 2 beta wolves talking. Arriving this afternoon. A delegation from the Silverbrook pack. What for? Political alliance, supposedly. But everyone knows Alpha Theron is bringing his daughter, the beautiful one Celeste. Another female throwing herself at the Alpha King? The beta snorted. He's rejected every proposition so far. What makes Silverbrook think their princess will be different? Because Celeste Silverbrook isn't just beautiful, she's gifted. They say she can manipulate emotions through the bond, to make anyone fall in love with her if she wants. Kira's scrub brush stilled. A gifted wolf, coming to seduce the Alpha King. And Margot had been talking about finding the king's weakness. About undermining him. This wasn't a coincidence. Kira needed to warn him. She abandoned her scrubbing, and made her way through the servants' passages, the narrow corridors that let Omegas move through the packhouse unseen. She found Commander Thorne in the armory, inspecting weapons. Kira approached and tugged on his sleeve. The commander looked down at her, his expression softening slightly. "What is it, girl?" She gestured frantically, pointing toward the main hall, then to herself, then making a series of signs she hoped he'd interpret as urgent. "You need to see the king?" The commander frowned. "He's preparing for the Silverbrook delegation." "Unless it's an emergency." Kira nodded emphatically. "Emergency, yes." The commander sighed. "All right, come on." He led her through the halls to a private study. The Alpha King was there, reviewing documents with two of his advisors. He looked up when they entered, his silver eyes immediately finding Kira. "Commander, the Omega says it's urgent, Your Majesty," I thought. "Leave us." The Alpha King's voice was sharp. The advisors and commander filed out quickly. The moment the door closed, Kira spoke. "Silverbrook Pack is coming. Today. With Alpha Theron's daughter, Celeste. And, I'm aware. It's a diplomatic visit. It's a trap." Kira moved closer, ignoring the pain in her back. "I overheard the betas talking. Celeste is gifted, she can manipulate emotions, make people fall in love with her." The Alpha King's expression didn't change. "I know what she can do." "Then, you know Margot invited her here." "No, this isn't about diplomacy, it's about finding your weakness." Kira's hands clenched into fists. "They're going to use Celeste to manipulate you, to make you vulnerable. Let them try." The Alpha King's voice was cold, confident. "Celeste Silverbrook's gift is impressive, but it won't work on me. My mental shields are you willing to bet your kingdom on that?" Kira interrupted. "Because that's what they're counting on. Your arrogance, your certainty that you can't be touched." Silence stretched between them. Then the Alpha King smiled, sharp and dangerous. "You're lecturing me about arrogance? You, who spent 7 years pretending to be broken rather than face your fears?" The words hit like a slap. Kira's jaw tightened. "That's not fair. Isn't it?" He moved closer, his presence overwhelming. "You hid, because it was easier than fighting. And now you're projecting that cowardice onto me, assuming I'll fall for a honey trap because you can't imagine anyone being strong enough to resist." "I'm trying to help you," Kira said through gritted teeth. "I don't need your help with this." The Alpha King turned away, dismissive. "Celeste Silverbrook is a political player, nothing more. I've dealt with dozens like her. I'll be polite, maintain diplomatic relations, and send her home empty-handed. Just like all the others." You're not listening." "No, you're not listening." He spun back to face her, his silver eyes blazing. "I am the Alpha King. I have fought wars, crushed rebellions, and rebuilt an entire kingdom from the ashes of corruption. I am not some lovesick pup who will fall for the first pretty face with a gift. So unless you have actual intelligence, concrete plans, specific threats, stop wasting my time with your paranoid speculation." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and cutting. Kira felt something crack inside her chest. She'd risked everything to warn him, had dragged herself from her sickbed to bring him this information, and he'd thrown it back in her face. "Fine," she said quietly. "I'll leave you to your diplomatic visit. I'm sure it will go exactly as you expect." She turned toward the door. "Kira." "No." She didn't look back. "You made yourself clear, Your Majesty. I'm just a paranoid Omega who doesn't understand the complexities of pack politics. I'll return to scrubbing floors where I belong." She left before he could respond, her back screaming with every step. Pride, she thought bitterly. Pride would be his downfall, just like it had nearly been hers. But unlike her, the Alpha King had too much power to hide when he fell. The Silverbrook delegation arrived at sunset. Kira watched from the shadows of the kitchen entrance as they processed through the courtyard. Alpha Theron was a broad, silver-haired wolf with calculating eyes. His entourage was impressive, 20 warriors, 10 advisors, and at the center of it all, walking like she owned the very air around her, was Celeste. She was beautiful, devastatingly so. Hair like spun gold, eyes like summer sky, a figure that made even the female wolves stare. But it was more than physical beauty. There was something magnetic about her, something that drew the eye and held it captive. Kira felt it even from a distance, the pull of Celeste's gift, like invisible threads trying to wrap around her mind and whisper that this woman was wonderful, perfect, worthy of devotion. She slammed her mental shields up, hard and fast. The sensation faded, but the memory of it remained. If Celeste could affect her from 50 feet away without even trying, what would happen when she focused her full attention on the Alpha King? Margot appeared in the courtyard, all smiles and gracious welcome. Alpha Theron. Lady Celeste, welcome to Thornwood. We're so honored to host you. The honor is ours, Luna Margot. Alpha Theron's voice was smooth as silk. We've heard such interesting things about the Alpha King's investigation here. We wanted to show our support. Translation. We wanted to position ourselves for when you fall. They were all led inside for a formal reception. Kira slipped through the servants' passages to reach the great hall, where she could listen and observe. The Alpha King stood at the center of the room, regal and remote. When Celeste was presented to him, she curtsied with perfect grace. Your Majesty, she said, her voice like honey. I've heard so much about you. They say you're reforming the old ways, bringing justice back to the territories. They say many things. The Alpha King's tone was polite but cool. Not all of them true. I'm sure you're being modest. Celeste smiled, and the room seemed to brighten. I'd love to hear about your vision for the future. Perhaps we could speak privately? I have some thoughts on diplomatic relations between our packs that might interest you. Subtle, smooth, the perfect excuse to get him alone. Margot was practically glowing with satisfaction. The Alpha King hesitated for just a fraction of a second, so brief that most wouldn't have noticed. But Kira noticed. And her heart sank. Of course, the Alpha King said. We can speak after dinner. Commander Thorn will arrange a meeting. Celeste's smile widened. I look forward to it. As the reception continued, Kira watched Celeste work the room. She touched arms, laughed at jokes, made eye contact with calculated precision, and wherever she went, wolves lit up, became more animated, more eager to please. Her gift was insidious, not a sledgehammer of emotion, but a whisper, a subtle suggestion that she was someone special, someone worth impressing. And the Alpha King, for all his power and confidence, was still just a wolf, still capable of being manipulated. Kira felt sick. Dinner was an elaborate affair. Kira served alongside the other Omegas, moving through the room with practiced invisibility. Celeste sat beside the Alpha King, her attention focused entirely on him. She laughed at his observations, asked intelligent questions about his reforms, and generally presented herself as the perfect political partner, and Kira could see it working. The Alpha King's posture was less rigid than usual. He actually smiled, really smiled at something Celeste said. His responses became longer, more engaged. Through the pack bond, Kira could sense the emotional manipulation happening. Celeste's gift was subtle but constant, weaving threads of attraction and admiration around the Alpha King like a spider building a web, and he didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did notice, and didn't care. Maybe Kira had been wrong about him. Maybe he wasn't the just, incorruptible king she'd started to believe in. Maybe he was just another powerful wolf who could be controlled by a beautiful face and a clever gift. The thought made her chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with her healing wounds. More wine, Your Majesty? Celeste's voice was soft, intimate. Thank you. The Alpha King's voice was warm. Actually warm. Kira's hand trembled as she refilled water glasses nearby. She wanted to scream, to grab him by the shoulders and shake him, to demand he see what was happening, but she was just the silent shadow. The broken Omega, the girl with no voice. I must say, Celeste continued, her hand resting lightly on the Alpha King's arm, it's refreshing to meet someone who truly understands the burden of leadership. So few wolves comprehend what it means to bear responsibility for an entire kingdom. It can be isolating, the Alpha King admitted. Having power means having distance from others. They see the crown, not the wolf wearing it. I understand exactly what you mean. Celeste's voice dropped to something almost vulnerable. People see my gift and assume I'm lucky. They don't see how lonely it is to never know if someone likes you for yourself, or because of what you can make them feel. The Alpha King's expression softened. That must be difficult. It is. But I think you understand loneliness too. Despite being surrounded by wolves, you're alone in your decisions, alone in your judgment. She leaned closer. It doesn't have to be that way. The right partner could share that burden, could be someone who sees you, not just the king. Kira's stomach twisted. Margot was watching from across the table, her expression triumphant. This was it. The weakness they'd been looking for. Not power or politics. Loneliness. The one thing the Alpha King couldn't fight with strength or strategy. Perhaps we should have that private meeting now, Celeste suggested, her voice soft enough that only those nearby could hear. I'd love to show you some of the innovations we've implemented in Silverbrook. Ideas that might help your reforms here. The Alpha King nodded. Commander Thorne, please escort Lady Celeste and myself to the West Study. They rose together, and Kira watched them leave. She should let it happen, should let the Alpha King make his own mistakes. He'd dismissed her warning, mocked her concern. He deserved whatever consequences came from his arrogance. But even as she thought it, she knew she couldn't walk away. Not because she owed him, not because he'd protected her, but because somewhere in the past week, despite everything, she'd started to care whether he succeeded or failed. And that was perhaps the most dangerous thing of all. Subscribe if you feel Kira's frustration watching someone you're trying to help walk straight into danger. Because sometimes caring about someone means fighting for them even when they push you away. Drop a comment. Would you risk everything to save someone who doesn't believe they need saving? Kira waited 10 minutes. Then she slipped through the servants' passages toward the west wing. She couldn't enter the study, that would be too obvious. But the passages had listening posts, small gaps in the walls where servants could hear if they were needed. She pressed her ear to the gap and listened. Remarkable what you've accomplished in such a short time, Celeste was saying. Taking control of 5 fractured territories and bringing them together under one rule. That takes not just strength, but vision. The territories were bleeding themselves dry with constant warfare. The Alpha King's voice was measured but engaged. Someone had to stop it. And that someone was you, a born leader. A pause. May I ask you something personal? You may ask. Do you ever regret it? Taking the crown? You could have had a simple life, a mate, a family, peace. Instead, you chose this burden. Silence. Then, sometimes, late at night, when the decisions get too heavy, I wonder what it would be like to be ordinary. You could never be ordinary, Darian. The use of his first name was deliberate, intimate. Kira's breath caught. But you could have balance, Celeste continued. Someone to share the burden with. Someone who understands the weight of gifts and power and responsibility. Someone like you? The Alpha King's voice was dry, but not dismissive. Someone like me, Celeste agreed without shame. I won't pretend this isn't calculated. Political alliances through mating bonds are as old as pack culture itself. But that doesn't mean they can't also be genuine. I see you, Darian. Not just the king. The wolf beneath. And I'm supposed to believe that? You've known me for 3 hours. No. You're supposed to consider it. Consider that having an equal partner might make you stronger, not weaker. Consider that Silverbrook's alliance would solidify your hold on the territories. Consider that maybe, just maybe, you don't have to be alone. More silence. Kira pressed closer to the gap, her heart pounding. You're very good at this, the Alpha King said finally. At what? Emotional manipulation. Making it seem sincere. Making me want to believe you, Darian. But here's the problem, Celeste. I can feel your gift working. Can feel the threads of emotion you're trying to weave around me. And while I appreciate the artistry, you really are quite skilled. It won't work. Relief flooded through Kira so intensely she almost gasped aloud. I don't know what you... Don't. The Alpha King's voice turned cold. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending. I know what you are, what you can do. And I know that Luna Margot invited you here specifically to compromise me. A pause. Then Celeste laughed, a genuine sound, surprisingly warm. Well, you're more perceptive than most. Most kings don't survive long if they can't detect manipulation. Fair point. Sounds of movement, Celeste, standing perhaps. For what it's worth, the loneliness thing, that was real. You do isolate yourself. And it will break you eventually if you're not careful. I'll take that under advisement. Will you? Or will you continue pushing away anyone who tries to get close because you're terrified of being vulnerable? Celeste's voice was sharp now, the honey gone. Your Omega warned you about me, didn't she? The deaf one, who isn't actually deaf. And you dismissed her, because accepting her help would mean admitting you need someone. Kira's heart stopped. How did you? Please. I've been reading emotions in this pack since I arrived. That girl's feelings toward you are so loud I could hear them from the courtyard. Celeste moved toward the door. She's terrified for you. Not of you for you. And you threw it back in her face, because your pride is more important than accepting genuine loyalty. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? The door opened. Good luck with your investigation, Your Majesty. And when you finally realize that strength doesn't mean standing alone, I hope there's still someone left who's willing to stand with you. Footsteps retreated down the corridor. Silence filled the study. Then, quietly, Kira, I know you're listening. Come out. Kira froze. How did he? The servants' passage. The gap in the wall. Did you really think I wouldn't know about it? The Alpha King's voice was tired. Come out. We need to talk. Slowly, reluctantly, Kira emerged from the passage into the corridor. She entered the study, keeping her eyes down. The Alpha King stood by the window, his back to her. You were right, he said quietly. About Celeste. About the trap. I'm sorry I dismissed you. The apology hung in the air between them. Why did you? Kira asked. Dismiss me, I mean. He turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw something raw in his silver eyes. Because accepting your warning would mean accepting that I need you, that I can't do this alone. And I've spent my entire life believing that needing anyone is weakness. Is it working out well for you, that belief? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Not particularly, no. Kira moved closer, ignoring the pain in her back. Celeste was right about one thing. You do isolate yourself, and it is going to break you if you're not careful. Is that your professional opinion as my spy? No, it's my personal opinion as someone who spent 7 years isolating herself and nearly lost who she was in the process. Kira met his eyes. You can't do this alone, Darian. Not the investigation, not the kingdom, not any of it. The use of his name felt dangerous and right all at once. And you're volunteering to help? The Alpha King studied her. Even after I was an arrogant ass who mocked your concern? Someone has to keep you from walking into obvious traps. Kira crossed her arms. Might as well be me. Why? What do you get out of this? The question hung heavy between them. Kira could lie. Could say it was about revenge on Margot and Silas. Could claim it was purely strategic. But she was tired of lies. Because for the first time in 7 years, someone sees me. Really sees me. Not the silent shadow. Not the broken Omega. Me. Her voice dropped. And I think maybe you need someone who sees you too. Not just the king, the wolf beneath. The Alpha King's expression shifted something vulnerable, flickering across his face, before his control snapped back into place. All right, he said quietly. We do this together. But no more secrets between us. If you sense something, you tell me. If I'm making a mistake, you call me on it. Deal? Deal. He extended his hand. Kira took it. The moment their skin touched, something sparked recognition, connection. The beginning of something neither of them had names for yet. The Alpha King pulled his hand back first, clearing his throat. Margot will be furious that her plan failed. She'll try something else. She always does. Then we'd better be ready. He moved toward the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we finish what we started. We tear down every corrupt foundation in this pack and rebuild it right. Kira nodded. But as she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Kira? Yes? Thank you. For warning me. For caring. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Don't make me regret it, Kira said. Then she left before the emotion in her chest could become something she couldn't control. Because the most dangerous thing about hunting corruption? Sometimes you started caring about the wolf hunting beside you, and that made you vulnerable in ways no gift or power could protect against. Chapter 6. Blood and Betrayal. The retaliation came at dawn. Kira woke to screaming. She bolted upright in her thin bed, pain lancing through her healing back. Around her, the other Omegas were stirring, confusion and fear thick in the air. "What's happening?" Petra whispered. Kira was already moving, ignoring the protests of her body. She slipped through the servants' passages, following the sounds of chaos to the main courtyard. What she saw made her blood run cold. 3 bodies hung from the courtyard gates. 3 wolves she recognized, servants who'd been friendly to the Alpha King's guards. Their throats had been slit, and pinned to their chests was a message written in blood. "Traitors die. The king's spies will fall." The pack had gathered, staring in horror. The Alpha King stood at the center, his face carved from stone, his silver eyes burning with cold fury. "Who did this?" His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Who murdered these wolves?" No one answered. The fear in the pack bond was overwhelming terror mixed with something else. Satisfaction. Pride. Someone in this crowd had committed murder, and they were pleased with themselves. Kira reached out with her gift, sorting through the tangled emotions. Most wolves were genuinely horrified. But there in the back she felt it. A cluster of triumphant feelings, carefully masked but not carefully enough. 4 wolves, 2 enforcers, 1 beta, and Luna Margot. Kira's breath caught. Margot hadn't wielded the knife herself, but she'd ordered it. The beta's thoughts were practically screaming it. "For the Luna, for the pack, for our way of life." "Commander Thorn," the Alpha King said, his voice deadly quiet. "Lock down the pack house. No one enters or leaves until I find who's responsible for this." "Your Majesty?" Alpha Silas stepped forward, his face pale. "Surely this is just rogues. An outside attack. Don't." The Alpha King's eyes pinned him in place. "Don't insult my intelligence. These wolves were killed inside pack territory, inside your supposedly secure walls. This was an inside job. A message from someone who thinks they can terrorize my investigation into silence." He turned to address the assembled pack. "Let me be very clear. I don't respond well to threats. Whoever did this, whoever ordered it, you've just signed your own death warrant. I will find you, and when I do, you'll wish you'd shown your victims more mercy." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. "Everyone returns to their quarters," Commander Thorn ordered. "King's Guard will be conducting interviews. Anyone who resists will be arrested on suspicion." As the crowd dispersed, Kira tried to slip away with the other Omegas, but a hand caught her arm, gentle but firm. The Alpha King leaned close, his voice barely a whisper. "My study. 10 minutes. Use the servant's passage." Then he released her and turned away, barking orders to his guards. Kira's heart pounded as she made her way through the hidden corridors. When she entered the study through the concealed door, the Alpha King was alone, staring out the window at the bodies still hanging in the courtyard. "I should have anticipated this," he said without turning. Margot's plan with Celeste failed. Of course she'd escalate. "It was her," Kira confirmed. "She ordered it. I could sense it, her satisfaction. Her pride. She thinks she's winning. She's not." The Alpha King's voice was ice. "But I can't arrest her without proof. My gift tells me she's involved, and your gift tells you the same. But neither of us can provide evidence that would hold up in pack law. So what do we do?" He turned to face her. "We make her reveal herself. We give her exactly what she wants, the appearance of victory, and let her get arrogant enough to make a mistake." Kira's stomach twisted. "You want to pretend she's winning. I want to pretend I'm losing control. That the murders have rattled me. That I'm questioning my investigation." His silver eyes were calculating. "And I need you to help me sell it." "How?" "Tonight, there's a pack council meeting, a mandatory gathering where I'll address what happened. I'm going to announce that I'm reconsidering my approach, that perhaps I've been too aggressive, too quick to judge." He moved closer. "And you're going to be there, visible, where Margot can see you, where she can see that you're afraid of her." "I am afraid of her," Kira said honestly. "Good. Use it. Let her think she's broken you. Let her think those bodies have sent the message she intended." The Alpha King's voice softened slightly. "I know I'm asking a lot. You're asking me to be bait." "Yes." Kira was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, what happens when she takes the bait? Then we have her. She'll make a move, something bold, something that will finally give us the proof we need. And when she does, we'll be ready. It was a dangerous plan, reckless, even. But Kira had spent 7 years hiding, 7 years being careful and silent and invisible. Maybe it was time to be reckless. All right, she said. I'll do it. The Alpha King's expression shifted, something like respect flickering across his features. You're braver than you give yourself credit for. Or stupider. Jury's still out. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Then his expression turned serious again. Kira, if anything happens, if this goes wrong, it won't. If it does, he continued, his voice firm, you run. You don't try to be heroic. You don't stay to fight. You run. And you keep running until you're far from Thornwood territory. Understood? The concern in his voice made something warm bloom in Kira's chest, dangerous and unwanted. Understood. She lied. Because they both knew she wouldn't run. Not now. Not when they were so close to exposing the rot at the heart of this pack. The pack council meeting was held in the Great Hall. Every member of the pack required to attend. Kira stood in her usual spot, the back corner with the other Omegas, small and unobtrusive, but she could feel Margot's eyes on her. Calculating. Assessing. The Alpha King entered, and the hall fell silent. He looked different. His shoulders were tense, his jaw tight. He looked like a wolf under pressure. Members of Thornwood Pack, he began, his voice lacking its usual commanding edge. This morning, 3 innocents were murdered. 3 wolves who'd done nothing wrong except perform their duties faithfully. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I came here to root out corruption, to bring justice to a pack that had lost its way. He paused. But I'm beginning to question whether my methods have been too harsh, whether I've created more problems than I've solved. Kira felt the shift in the room, surprise, confusion, and from Margot, a surge of vicious satisfaction. Alpha Silas stood. Your Majesty, we appreciate your concern. Perhaps if you eased some of the restrictions, released some of the wolves you've arrested on lesser charges, we could begin to heal. Perhaps, the Alpha King agreed. I'll consider it. For now, the lockdown is lifted. But I want everyone to understand more violence will not be tolerated. Whoever committed these murders, turn yourself in. Face justice with honor rather than forcing me to hunt you down. It was a weak statement. An opening. And Margot knew it. Kira watched her stepmother's expression, the barely concealed triumph. Margot thought she'd won. Thought she'd rattled the Alpha King badly enough to make him back down. The meeting ended, and the pack dispersed. Kira tried to slip away, but Margot's voice cut through the crowd. Kira, come here. Kira's blood chilled. But she turned, keeping her expression blank and afraid not hard, given the circumstances. Margot approached, Lydia trailing behind her like a shadow. Up close, the Luna was all sharp edges and cold beauty. Her lips moved in exaggerated slowness. I hope you're not thinking of causing any more accidents. After what happened this morning, I think we all understand what happens to clumsy servants. The threat was clear. Kira nodded quickly, letting her hands tremble. Margot smiled. Good girl. Now run along. The kitchens need cleaning. Kira fled, feeling Margot's eyes boring into her back. She'd sold it. The fear, the submission, the appearance of being thoroughly cowed. Now they just had to wait for Margot to make her move. The move came at midnight. Kira was in the Omega quarters, pretending to sleep, when she felt a disturbance in the pack bond. Emotions swirling in the darkness, moving with purpose. She slipped from her bed and into the servants' passages, following the pull of those emotions. What she found made her heart stop. Margot stood in a storage room deep in the cellars, surrounded by 4 wolves, her inner circle, the ones who'd committed the murders. And on the table between them lay vials. Dozens of vials filled with dark liquid. Deliver them before dawn, Margot was saying. 1 vial in each water supply throughout the pack house. By morning, half the King's Guard will be too sick to stand. And in the chaos, we make our move. Poison. Margot was going to poison the King's Guard. What about the Alpha King himself? One of the wolves asked. His water will have a special blend. Not enough to kill that would bring too much scrutiny, but enough to weaken him, make him vulnerable. Margot's smile was vicious. And when he's weak, when his guard is incapacitated, Alpha Silas will challenge him for leadership of the investigation. The Pack Council will support us. They're terrified of the king's methods. They'll vote to remove him from authority over Thornwood. And if he refuses, then we'll have no choice but to eliminate him. A tragic accident, a rogue attack during his weakened state. Margot picked up one of the vials. Either way, by this time tomorrow the Alpha King's reign over Thornwood ends. Kira's mind raced. She needed to warn him, needed to stop this before. A hand clamped over her mouth, another around her waist, lifting her off her feet. She'd been so focused on Margot's group that she hadn't sensed the guard behind her. Well. Margot's voice came from the doorway. Look what we caught. A little mouse in the walls. Kira was dragged into the storage room and thrown to the floor. She looked up to find Margot standing over her, triumph blazing in her eyes. I knew it, Margot hissed. I knew you were too clever by half, too convenient, always in the right place at the right time. She crouched down, grabbing Kira's chin. You can hear me, can't you? You've always been able to hear. Kira kept her expression blank, terrified. Don't bother with the act. I know. Margot's nails dug into Kira's skin. How long have you been spying for the king? How many of our secrets have you whispered in his ear? Kira remained silent. Doesn't matter now. Margot released her and stood. By morning, you'll both be dead. You, for being a traitor to your own pack. Him, for being weak enough to trust a broken Omega. She turned to her followers. Tie her up. We'll deal with her after we deliver the poison. Rough hands grabbed Kira, binding her wrists and ankles with rope. They shoved a gag in her mouth and threw her into the corner like garbage. Leave one guard to watch her, Margot ordered. The rest of you, come with me. We have work to do. They filed out, leaving Kira bound and gagged in the darkness with a single guard standing watch. She tested her bonds tight, expertly tied. Her wolf snarled inside her mind, wanting to shift, to fight, but shifting would tear her barely healed back apart. She'd be useless. Think, Kira. Think. The guard was nervous. She could feel his emotions. Young, inexperienced, unsure. He didn't want to be here, didn't want to be part of murder. Kira made a sound through the gag, small, frightened, pathetic. The guard turned to look at her. She made the sound again, then started trembling violently, her eyes rolling back. The guard rushed forward. Hey, don't. The moment he pulled the gag away to check if she was choking, Kira lunged. Her teeth clamped down on his hand hard. He yelped and stumbled back, and Kira used the momentum to roll, bringing her bound legs up to kick him in the knee. He went down with a crash. Kira scrambled toward the door, inch by inch, her bound limbs making movement agonizing. Behind her, the guard was getting up, cursing. She made it to the doorway, into the corridor, started dragging herself toward the stairs. The guard grabbed her ankle. Kira kicked backward with everything she had. Her heel connected with his face. Blood sprayed. He released her with a howl. She crawled forward, ignoring the fire in her back, the screaming of her muscles, the stairs. She just needed to reach the stairs. Where exactly do you think you're going? Margot's voice. Kira's heart stopped. She looked up to find her stepmother standing at the top of the stairs, poison vials still in hand. I came back for something I forgot, Margot said conversationally, descending the steps. Imagine my surprise when I heard fighting. She crouched in front of Kira. You know what? I've changed my mind. I'm not going to wait until morning to kill you. She pulled out a knife, long, wickedly sharp. I'm going to gut you right here, right now. And then I'm going to tell everyone you attacked me, that you were the traitor all along, working with the rogues. Margot's smile was insane. And the Alpha King will believe me. Because why would he trust a broken Omega over a Luna? The knife came up. Kira closed her eyes. And then, a hand caught Margot's wrist, twisted. The knife clattered to the ground. Margot screamed. Kira's eyes flew open to see the Alpha King standing there, his silver eyes blazing with fury. Behind him, Commander Thorne and a dozen guards poured into the corridor. "You were saying?" the Alpha King asked, his voice deadly quiet. "Something about me believing you over her?" Margot's face went white. "Arrest her," the Alpha King commanded, "and everyone who was with her. The charge is conspiracy to commit murder, attempted poisoning of royal guards, and treason against the crown." The guards moved with swift efficiency. Margot was dragged away, still screaming protests. The Alpha King knelt beside Kira and carefully removed her gag. "Are you all right?" Kira nodded, her throat too tight for words. He began untying her bonds. "When you didn't report to me after the meeting, I knew something was wrong. I had guards watching Margot, waiting for her to make a move. We followed her to the cellar, heard everything." His hands were gentle as they freed her wrists. "You did well. You got us exactly what we needed." "I got caught," Kira said hoarsely. "You discovered a murder plot, got them to confess it out loud where my guards could hear." He helped her sit up. "That's more than doing well. That's heroic." "I was terrified. Bravery and terror aren't mutually exclusive." The Alpha King's silver eyes met hers. "You could have run when you discovered the plot, could have saved yourself, but you stayed to gather evidence, to make sure we could stop them. You would have done the same." "Yes, but I'm the Alpha King. It's my job to take those risks." His hand came up, gently touching her cheek. "You're just an Omega who was supposed to stay safe." The touch sent electricity through her skin. "I'm not just anything," Kira said, echoing his words from days ago. "Remember?" A real smile crossed his face, warm, genuine, devastating. "No, you're definitely not." For a moment, they stayed like that, close enough that Kira could feel his breath on her face, see the flecks of darker silver in his eyes. Then Commander Thorne cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, we've secured all the conspirators. What are your orders?" The moment broke. The Alpha King stood, pulling Kira to her feet with him. "Have them taken to the holding cells. We'll conduct formal interrogations in the morning." He turned to Kira. "Can you walk?" "I think so." "Good. Because we're not done yet." His expression hardened. Margot was working with someone above her in the hierarchy. "We need to find out who." Kira's blood ran cold as realization hit. "Silas. Alpha Silas," the Alpha King confirmed. "Who's been conveniently absent during all of this. Who should have been in bed but somehow isn't in his chambers." His eyes gleamed. "We're going to find him, and we're going to end this tonight." He offered Kira his hand. She took it, and together, they went hunting. They found Alpha Silas in the old Alpha's office, a room that hadn't been used since Kira's mother died. He was burning papers, destroying evidence, his movements frantic and desperate. "Going somewhere?" the Alpha King asked from the doorway. Silas spun, his face contorted with fear and rage. "You can't prove anything. Whatever Margot did, she acted alone." "Did she?" The Alpha King stepped into the room. "Because I have a dozen witnesses who say otherwise. Who say you've been embezzling PAC funds for years. Who say you ordered the purge of gifted wolves to eliminate threats to your power. Who say you've been planning to assassinate me since I arrived. Lies, all lies. Then let's test that, shall we?" The Alpha King's voice dropped to something dangerous. "By the authority vested in me as Alpha King of the 5 territories, I challenge you, Silas Thornwood, to trial by truth. You will answer my questions under the compulsion of my gift, and we will all learn exactly what you've done." Silas's face went gray. Trial by truth was ancient law, irrefutable, binding. If he refused, it was an admission of guilt. I have rights. PAC law. PAC law defers to royal law in matters of treason." The Alpha King moved closer, his power filling the room like a physical force. "Now, let's start with a simple question. Did you order the purge of gifted wolves 7 years ago?" The compulsion in his voice was absolute. Silas's mouth opened against his will. "Yes." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. "Did you murder Elena Thornwood, Kira's grandmother?" "Yes." Kira's breath caught. Hearing it confirmed, hearing him admit it. "Did you conspire with Luna Margot to poison my guards and assassinate me?" Silas's face contorted with the effort of resistance. But the Alpha King's gift was too strong. "Yes." How many other wolves have you murdered to maintain your power? 17. Including my first mate. The room went silent. Kira's world tilted. Her mother. Her mother hadn't died of sickness. You killed her, Kira whispered. You killed my mother. Silas's eyes found hers, and she saw no remorse. Only cold calculation. She knew about the embezzlement. Was going to expose me. I couldn't allow that. The rage that filled Kira was beyond anything she'd ever felt. 7 years. 7 years of living under the roof of her mother's murderer. 7 years of pretending to be broken, while he walked free. She started forward, her wolf surging to the surface, ready to tear him apart. The Alpha King's arm blocked her path. No, he said quietly, not like this. He killed her. He killed my mother. My grandmother. I know. The Alpha King's voice was steel wrapped in silk. And he will pay. But not through vengeance, through justice. He turned back to Silas. By the authority vested in me as Alpha King, I strip you of your title and rank. You are no longer Alpha of Thornwood. You are no longer a member of any pack. You are rogue, kinless, and condemned. His silver eyes burned with cold fire. And the sentence for treason, for murder, for crimes against the crown and innocent wolves, is death. Silas lunged desperate, cornered, deadly. The Alpha King moved like lightning. One hand caught Silas's throat. The other drew a silver blade from his belt. Any last words? Go to hell, Silas spat. You first. The blade flashed. Blood sprayed. Silas collapsed, his throat slit, his eyes already going glassy. Kira stared at the body of the wolf who'd terrorized her for 7 years. The wolf who'd murdered her mother, her grandmother, 17 others, and all she felt was empty. The Alpha King wiped his blade clean and sheathed it. It's done, he said quietly. Thornwood Pack is free of its corruption. Is it? Kira's voice was hollow. Or did we just cut off the head while leaving the rot underneath? Then we dig deeper. We find every piece of corruption and we burn it out. The Alpha King turned to face her. But not tonight. Tonight, you've bled enough. Done enough. Tonight, you rest. 1. I don't know if I can. Then I'll stay with you, make sure you're safe. He stepped closer. You're not alone in this anymore, Kira. You're not the silent shadow hiding in the darkness. You're… What? Kira looked up at him. What am I? The Alpha King was quiet for a long moment. Then, someone who matters. To this pack. To the kingdom. His voice dropped. To me? The words hit her like a physical blow. Before she could respond, Commander Thorn appeared in the doorway. Your Majesty, the pack is gathering. They've heard about Alpha Silas. They're demanding answers. The Alpha King nodded. Then we'll give them answers. We'll tell them the truth. All of it. He looked at Kira. Together? Kira thought of her grandmother. Her mother. 7 years of silence. Together, she agreed. And hand in hand, they walked out to face the pack and begin rebuilding what corruption had destroyed. Chapter 7. The Voice That Roared. The great hall was packed. Every member of Thornwood Pack had gathered, their emotions a chaotic storm in the pack bond. Fear, confusion, anger, grief. They'd woken to news of arrests, executions, revelations that shook the very foundation of their world. Kira stood beside the Alpha King on the raised platform, visible to everyone for the first time, not as the silent shadow, but as herself. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to stand straight, to meet the eyes of wolves who'd ignored her for 7 years. The Alpha King's presence beside her was steady, grounding. He'd changed into formal attire black and silver, the colors of his house, and wore his authority like armor. Members of Thornwood Pack, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. Tonight, your former Alpha and Luna were arrested for treason, conspiracy to murder, and crimes against innocent wolves. Alpha Silas Thornwood has been executed for his crimes. Luna Margot awaits trial. The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. I know this is difficult to hear. Many of you served under Silas's leadership for years, but the evidence is irrefutable. The Alpha King's silver eyes swept the crowd. For 7 years, your Alpha has been embezzling pack funds, murdering anyone who threatened his power, crushing dissent through fear and violence. That's a lie, someone shouted from the crowd. One of Silas's old enforcers. Alpha Silas was strong. He kept us safe. Safe? The Alpha King's voice turned cold. Tell me, did Elena Thornwood feel safe when he murdered her for having a gift? Did the 17 other wolves he killed feel safe? Did his own mate feel safe before he poisoned her? Gasps rippled through the hall. I have confessions. Testimony from the condemned. Evidence that cannot be disputed. The Alpha King gestured to Commander Thorne, who stepped forward with a stack of documents. Everything will be made available for public review. Every crime, every victim, every lie. But how did you uncover all this? Another voice called. How did you know where to look? This was the moment, the dangerous moment. The Alpha King turned to Kira. Because I had help. From someone who's been watching, listening, gathering evidence for 7 years. Someone who knows this pack better than anyone. His voice softened. Kira. Tell them. Every eye in the hall turned to her. Kira's throat was dry. Her heart hammered against her ribs. For 7 years, she'd been silent, safe in her invisibility. But safety had come at the cost of truth. And she was done hiding. My name is Kira Thornwood, she said, her voice rough but clear. Daughter of Alpha Nathan Thornwood, and his true mate, Luna Sarah. For 7 years, I've pretended to be deaf and mute. I'm neither. The hall exploded in shocked exclamations. 7 years ago, my grandmother Elena Thornwood was murdered by Alpha Silas during the purge of gifted wolves. Before she died, she told me to hide, to pretend I was broken so I wouldn't be killed for having the same gifts she did. Kira's voice grew stronger, so I hid. I became the silent shadow, the broken Omega that no one noticed. What gifts? Someone demanded. What are you? I can sense emotions through the pack bond. I can hear thoughts when they're strong enough. I can tell truth from lies. Kira met the crowd's eyes without flinching, and I used those gifts to help the Alpha King uncover every secret, every crime, every piece of corruption that was rotting this pack from the inside. Traitor! Lydia's voice rang out. She stood near the front, her face twisted with rage and tears. You betrayed your own family, your own pack. My family? Kira's laugh was bitter. Your mother had me whipped for spilling tea. Your father murdered my mother and grandmother. You stood by and watched while I was treated like garbage for 7 years. She stepped forward. I didn't betray this pack. I saved it from the wolves who were destroying it. You're a liar, Lydia shrieked. A freak with unnatural powers. You should have been killed in the purge. Enough. The Alpha King's voice cracked like a whip. Lady Lydia, you will show respect, or you will join your mother in the holding cells. Lydia went pale and silent. The Alpha King addressed the crowd again. I understand this is shocking, difficult, but Kira Thornwood is not your enemy. She's a hero who risked everything to bring justice to innocent wolves. She could have fled, could have saved herself. Instead, she stayed and fought. His silver eyes swept the hall, and I, for one, am grateful. What happens now? An elder called out. Thornwood has no alpha, no leadership. Are we to be absorbed into another pack? No. The Alpha King's voice was firm. Thornwood pack will remain independent, but you will need new leadership. Leadership that can be trusted to put the pack's welfare above personal gain. Who? Multiple voices asked. The Alpha King was silent for a moment. Then his eyes found Kira. I nominate Kira Thornwood as interim alpha of Thornwood pack. The hall erupted in chaos. She's an Omega. She has no alpha blood. This is madness. But some voices rose in support. She exposed the corruption. She saved us from traitors. Her father was alpha, she has the bloodline. Kira stared at the Alpha King in shock. What are you doing? She hissed under her breath. Giving you what you've earned, he said quietly. The chance to rebuild what was destroyed, to lead instead of hiding. I can't. You can. His silver eyes held hers. You've been leading from the shadows for 7 years. Time to step into the light. Before Kira could protest further, Commander Thorne stepped forward. If I may, Your Majesty, there is precedent for this. Ancient pack law states that in times of crisis, leadership can pass to any wolf of alpha bloodline who has proven themselves worthy through deed and sacrifice. He looked at Kira. Lady Kira is the daughter of an alpha. She has proven herself through years of courage and the recent exposure of corruption. By ancient law, she qualifies. This is unprecedented, one of the elders argued. A female alpha has existed before, the Alpha King interrupted. In the old times, before modern pack structure corrupted our ways, female alphas were common, respected, powerful. His voice took on a dangerous edge. Or are you suggesting that females are incapable of leadership? Because I know several female alphas in the other territories who would be very interested to hear that opinion. The elder fell silent. A vote, another voice called. Let the pack decide. The Alpha King nodded. Very well, a pack vote. All in favor of Kira Thornwood serving as interim alpha until proper elections can be held, signify by raising your hand. Silence fell. Tense. Waiting. Then, slowly, hands began to rise. Petra was first, the young Omega who'd shown Kira kindness. Then other Omegas. Then some of the younger wolves who'd chafed under Silas's brutal leadership. More hands rose. The tide was turning. By the time the count was finished, 2/3 of the pack had voted in favor. It's decided, the Alpha King declared. By pack law and pack vote, Kira Thornwood is now the interim alpha of Thornwood Pack. He turned to her. Kneel. Kira's legs moved before her brain could catch up. She knelt before him. The Alpha King drew his blade, the same one he'd used to execute Silas. Do you swear to lead this pack with honor? To put their welfare above your own? To uphold justice and protect the innocent? I do. Kira's voice was steady. Do you swear loyalty to the crown and to the laws that bind the 5 territories? I do. Then by the authority vested in me as Alpha King, I recognize you as Alpha Kira Thornwood, leader of this pack, guardian of these lands. He touched the flat of the blade to each of her shoulders. Rise, Alpha, and lead your people well. Kira stood, her legs shaking, her mind reeling. She was an alpha. The broken Omega was now the leader of the pack that had despised her. The irony was almost too much to process. Subscribe if you believe Kira earned this moment, earned the right to lead wolves who once saw her as nothing. Because sometimes the greatest power comes from those who've learned to survive in silence. Drop a comment. What would you do first as the new alpha of a broken pack? The celebration that followed was subdued. Too much trauma, too many revelations for true joy. But there was relief. The sense that a festering wound had finally been lanced. Kira moved through the hall in a daze, accepting congratulations and wary looks in equal measure. Some wolves were genuinely pleased, others were clearly reserving judgment, and a few, like Lydia and her supporters, radiated pure hatred. This wouldn't be easy. Building trust, proving herself, healing years of corruption and fear. But for the first time in 7 years, she had a voice, had power, had a chance to make things right. Alpha Kira. Commander Thorne appeared at her elbow. The Alpha King requests your presence in the study. There are matters to discuss. Kira followed him through the corridors, her new title feeling strange on her tongue. When she entered the study, the Alpha King was pouring 2 glasses of wine. Congratulations, he said, offering her one. How does it feel to lead the pack that once treated you as invisible? Terrifying, surreal, overwhelming. Kira took the glass but didn't drink. Why did you do it? You could have installed anyone as interim alpha, someone with experience, political connections. I installed the wolf I trust. The Alpha King's silver eyes met hers. The wolf who proved herself loyal not just to me, but to the truth. The wolf who could have used her gifts for personal gain but chose justice instead. Or you installed someone you can control. Someone who owes you everything. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. There's that suspicion. Good. Never lose it. He moved to the window. But you're wrong. I don't want to control Thornwood. I want it stable, peaceful, self-governing, and you're the best chance for that. What if I fail? Then you fail, and we try something else. He turned back to her. but I don't think you will. You've survived 7 years of impossible odds. Leading a pack will be a challenge, but not an impossible one. Kira was quiet for a moment. Then, what happens now? Between us. The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. That depends, the Alpha King said carefully. I'm leaving Thornwood in 3 days, moving on to inspect the next territory. You'll be here, rebuilding your pack. We'll be. He paused. Separate. Something twisted in Kira's chest. Separate. Unless. He set down his wine glass and moved closer. Unless you'd consider a different arrangement. What kind of arrangement? The kind where Thornwood allies formally with the crown. Where you serve as one of my advisors remotely, of course. Where we continue working together to root out corruption across all the territories. His voice dropped. Where we don't say goodbye in 3 days and never see each other again. Kira's heart was pounding. You want me as an advisor? I want you as many things. The Alpha King's silver eyes burned with intensity. Advisor. Ally. Friend. He paused. More. If you're willing. The air between them crackled with tension. I'm an alpha now, Kira said quietly. I have responsibilities. A pack to rebuild. I can't just. I'm not asking you to abandon your pack. I'm asking you to consider a future where you don't have to choose between duty and. He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. And what we've built together. This partnership. This trust. Is that what this is? Trust? What else would you call it? Kira thought of the past week. The secrets shared, the dangers faced, the moments where they'd relied on each other completely. I don't know, she admitted, but it's more than just trust. Yes. The Alpha King's voice was rough. It is. He was close now. Close enough that Kira could see the silver flecks in his eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. Close enough to kiss. If she were brave enough. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Your Majesty, Commander Thorne's voice. Urgent message from the Eastern Territory. There's been an incident. The Alpha King closed his eyes briefly, frustration flickering across his face. Then his mask was back. Enter. Commander Thorne came in, handed over a sealed letter. The Alpha King read it, his expression darkening. What is it? Kira asked. Trouble in the Eastern Territory. Rebellion brewing. I need to leave tonight, not in 3 days. He looked at her, and something regretful flickered in his silver eyes. I'm sorry. We'll have to continue this conversation another time. Of course. You have a kingdom to run, and you have a pack to lead. He moved toward the door, then paused. Kira, what I said about wanting more, I meant it. When things are stable, when we both have breathing room, we'll figure this out. Will we? Yes. The certainty in his voice left no room for doubt. Because I'm not losing you now that I've found you. Then he was gone, leaving Kira alone with her swirling thoughts and the lingering warmth where he'd stood too close. The Alpha King left at dawn with his guard, a flurry of organized chaos. Kira watched from the courtyard as he mounted his horse, every inch the powerful ruler. He caught her eye across the crowd. No words passed between them, but the look said everything. This isn't finished. I'll be back. Then he was riding away, disappearing into the morning mist, and Kira turned to face her new reality. Alpha Kira. An elder approached, his expression carefully neutral. We should discuss the pack's finances. With Silas's embezzlement. This afternoon, Kira said, finding her voice, finding her authority. First, I need to address the Omegas, then the families of Silas's victims. Then we'll discuss finances. The elder blinked. The Omegas? They've been treated as expendable for too long. That changes now. Kira met his eyes. Any objections? The elder studied her for a moment, then bowed his head. No, Alpha, no objections. Kira gathered the Omegas in a small meeting room, all 12 of them, looking nervous and confused. I know you're wondering what happens now, she began. Whether the new Alpha will treat you any better than the old one did. She paused. I can't promise perfection, can't promise I'll never make mistakes, but I can promise this, you will be seen, heard, valued. Your lives matter as much as any beta or gamma in this pack. Petra's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Alpha. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when I've actually made things better. Kira looked at each of them. I need your help. Need your eyes and ears. You know things the higher ranks don't know, where the real problems are. I want reports. Honest ones. And I want suggestions for how to fix them. You're asking us for advice? One of the older Omegas said, shocked. I'm asking my pack members for their input. Yes. Kira smiled, tentative but real. We're going to rebuild Thornwood together. All of us. The meeting ran for 2 hours. By the end, the Omegas were talking freely, offering insights, sharing problems Kira had never even considered. It was a start, a small one, but a start nonetheless. The rest of the day blurred together, meetings with elders, reviews of pack finances, visits to the families of Silas's victims. Each conversation was difficult, draining, but necessary. By nightfall, Kira was exhausted. She collapsed in what had been the Alpha's office, her office now, and stared at the mountain of paperwork waiting for her attention. Knock knock. Petra appeared in the doorway with a tray of food. Thought you might be hungry, Alpha. Just Kira, please. At least when we're alone. Can't do that, not anymore. Petra set down the tray. You're not one of us now. You're our leader. That means something. The words settled over Kira like a heavy cloak. She was right. Everything had changed. Petra, do you think I can do this? Really lead? I think you're the only one who can. Petra moved to the door. The others wanted strength. Wanted an Alpha who would dominate, who would rule through fear. But you're going to lead through something more powerful. What's that? Understanding. Because you know what it's like to be powerless, to be invisible, to survive on scraps while others feast. Petra smiled. That makes you dangerous to those who abuse power, and it makes you perfect for those of us who've been abused. After Petra left, Kira sat in the quiet office, processing her words. 7 years of silence. 7 years of pain and fear and survival. But maybe, just maybe, those 7 years had been preparing her for this. For leadership born not from domination, but from understanding. For a new kind of Alpha. A new kind of pack. And somewhere in the Eastern Territory, she knew the Alpha King was fighting his own battles, facing his own challenges. But he'd be back, he'd promised. And Kira would be here, stronger and more prepared than ever. Because the silent shadow had found her voice. And she was going to use it to roar. Chapter 8. The Price of Power. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of Kira learning to lead a pack that didn't quite trust her. 3 weeks of late nights reviewing budgets, mediating disputes, making decisions that affected dozens of lives. 3 weeks of proving herself over and over to wolves who still saw her as the broken Omega, pretending to be something she wasn't. And 3 weeks without a single word from the Alpha King. Kira told herself it didn't matter. Told herself she was too busy to think about silver eyes and promises made in the heat of crisis. Told herself that whatever had sparked between them was just adrenaline and proximity. She was lying to herself. And she knew it. Alpha Kira. Commander Thorn, who'd been left behind to assist with Thornwood's transition, entered her office without knocking. We have a problem. Kira looked up from the supply reports she'd been reviewing. What kind of problem? The kind involving your half-sister and a group of dissidents. Thorn's expression was grim. Lydia has been holding secret meetings, gathering wolves who are unhappy with your leadership, and from what my scouts report, they're planning something. Kira's stomach sank. She'd known some wolves would resist her authority, but Lydia actively organizing against her? How many? 20, maybe 30. Mostly younger wolves from families that benefited from Silas's corruption. They're calling themselves the Thornwood Traditionalists. Thorn moved to the window. They want the old ways back. Strong Alpha leadership, clear hierarchy, no weak Omega sympathizers in power. They want me gone. Yes. Kira stood, pacing to the window beside him. Outside, pack members went about their daily routines, training, working, living. Most had accepted her leadership, or at least weren't actively fighting it. But 30 dissidents could cause serious damage if they decided to act. What do you recommend? She asked. Arrest the ringleaders. Make an example of them. Show strength. Thorn's voice was matter of fact. That's what the Alpha King would do. The Alpha King isn't trying to build trust with a pack that already fears him. Kira crossed her arms. If I start arresting wolves for having meetings, I'm no better than Silas. I become exactly what they're afraid of, a tyrant. And if you do nothing, you look weak. They'll see it as permission to escalate. He was right. Damn him. He was right. I need to talk to Lydia, Kira decided. Face to face. Hear what she has to say. That's dangerous. She hates you. This could be a trap. Then it's a trap I'll walk into with my eyes open. Kira met Thorn's gaze. I can't lead through fear. Won't. If that makes me weak in your eyes, so be it. Thorn was quiet for a moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. The Alpha King chose well. You're more like him than you think. I'm nothing like him. You're exactly like him. Stubborn, idealistic, willing to risk everything for what you believe is right. Thorn moved toward the door. I'll arrange a meeting with Lady Lydia, but I'm coming with you. Non-negotiable. Fine, but stay back. Let me handle this. As you wish, Alpha. The meeting was arranged for sunset in neutral territory, a clearing at the edge of Packlands. Lydia arrived with 5 supporters, all of them young and bristling with hostility. Kira came with only Commander Thorn, deliberately showing she wasn't afraid. Lydia looked different than she had 3 weeks ago. Thinner. Harder. The perfect princess facade had cracked, revealing something bitter underneath. Well, Lydia said, her voice dripping with disdain. The great Alpha Kira, come to threaten us into submission? No, come to listen. Kira stopped a respectful distance away. I hear you've been organizing wolves, who are unhappy with my leadership. I want to understand why. Lydia laughed sharp and cruel. You want to understand? Fine. Let me explain it to you in terms even a simple Omega can grasp. She stepped closer. You destroyed my family, had my father executed, my mother imprisoned. You took everything from me, my home, my status, my future, and now you parade around as Alpha, pretending you earned this position through merit when really, you just seduced the Alpha King into giving it to you. The accusation hit like a slap. Around the clearing, Lydia's supporters murmured agreement. I didn't seduce anyone, Kira said evenly. I exposed corruption and helped bring justice to innocent wolves. Your father was a murderer. Your mother conspired to commit treason. They brought their fates on themselves. They were strong. Lydia's voice rose. They kept this pack safe, kept us prosperous, kept us powerful. And you destroyed that because you were too weak to survive in a proper pack structure. Proper? Kira's voice turned cold. You think murdering gifted wolves is proper? Embezzling pack funds? Terrorizing anyone who questioned authority? That's not strength, Lydia. That's tyranny. It's survival. The strong lead. The weak follow. That's the natural order. Lydia's eyes blazed. But you've upset that order. Elevated Omegas above their station. Given voice to wolves who should stay silent. Made us weak. No, I've made us honest. Kira stepped forward. And I know that terrifies you. Because in an honest pack, wolves like you who've coasted on family connections and physical beauty actually have to prove their worth. Lydia's face flushed with rage. You have no right. I have every right. I'm the Alpha. Kira's voice hardened. And here's what's going to happen. You can accept my leadership and work within the system to voice your concerns, or you can continue organizing dissidents and force me to treat you as a threat to pack stability. Is that a threat? It's a choice. Kira met her half-sister's eyes. I don't want to be your enemy, Lydia, but I won't let you tear this pack apart because you're angry about facing consequences for your family's crimes. My family murdered 17 wolves, including my mother and grandmother. Kira's voice was quiet but fierce. So don't talk to me about family, about what was taken from you. You still have your life. That's more mercy than your father showed any of his victims. Silence fell over the clearing. One of Lydia's supporters shifted uncomfortably. She's got a point, Lydia. My cousin was killed in the purge. Maybe. Shut up, Lydia hissed. Then she turned back to Kira. Fine. You want honesty? Here's honesty. You're not a real alpha. You're a pretender who got lucky. And when the Alpha King realizes you're not worth his time, when he stops protecting you, we'll be waiting, and we'll take back what's ours. Then you'll be waiting a long time. The voice came from the trees. Everyone spun. The Alpha King stepped into the clearing, his silver eyes glowing in the fading light. He looked travel-worn, tired, but no less powerful. Kira's heart stuttered. Darian? Apologies for the dramatic entrance. His eyes swept the clearing, landing on Lydia. But I couldn't help overhearing. Something about me abandoning Alpha Kira? Lydia went pale. Let me be very clear. The Alpha King's voice was soft but deadly. Alpha Kira holds her position through merit, through courage, and through my complete confidence in her abilities. Anyone who questions that questions me, and I take challenges very seriously. He moved to stand beside Kira, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The message was unmistakable. She's under my protection. Now, the Alpha King addressed Lydia's group. You have legitimate concerns about leadership transition, about changes to pack structure. Those concerns deserve to be heard. But organizing secret meetings, plotting against your alpha, spreading sedition that crosses a line. We haven't done anything illegal, one of the supporters protested. Not yet, but you're building toward it. The Alpha King's eyes swept over them. So here's what happens next. You will attend the next Pack Council meeting. You will voice your concerns publicly, in the proper forum. Alpha Kira will listen and respond. And if you still can't accept her leadership after that, you're free to leave Thornwood and seek membership in another pack. But what you won't do is stay here and poison the well. And, if we refuse? Lydia's voice was defiant, but her hands trembled. Then I'll arrest every one of you for conspiracy against Crown-appointed leadership. And you'll spend the next 5 years in the royal dungeons. His smile was sharp as a blade. Your choice. The fight went out of Lydia's supporters. One by one, they nodded acceptance. Lydia stood alone, her face twisted with impotent rage. Finally, she spat at Kira's feet. This isn't over. Yes, Kira said quietly. It is. You just don't know it yet. Lydia turned and stalked away, her supporters trailing behind her. When they were gone, Commander Thorn cleared his throat. I'll give you two some privacy. Alpha Kira, I'll see you back at the pack house. He left, and suddenly, Kira was alone with the Alpha King for the first time in 3 weeks. You came back, she said. I said I would. His silver eyes searched her face. Did you think I wouldn't? I didn't know what to think. 3 weeks without a word. I know. I'm sorry. He ran a hand through his dark hair. The situation in the Eastern Territory was worse than I anticipated. Active rebellion, assassinations, complete chaos. I couldn't leave until it was stable. You could have sent a message. I did. 3 of them. His expression darkened. You didn't receive them? Kira shook her head. Then someone intercepted them. Someone in your pack who doesn't want us communicating. The Alpha King's jaw tightened. That's concerning. Everything about this situation is concerning. Kira wrapped her arms around herself. I'm barely holding this pack together, Darian. Every day is a battle to prove I deserve to lead. And now I find out I have dissidents organizing against me, messages being intercepted. Hey. He stepped closer, his hands coming up to grip her shoulders. You're doing better than barely holding together. Commander Thorn's reports have been glowing. The Omegas are thriving. Crime is down. The pack's finances are stabilizing. You're succeeding, Kira. It doesn't feel like success. It feels like drowning. Welcome to leadership. His voice was wry. It always feels like drowning. The trick is learning to swim anyway. Despite everything, Kira laughed. Is that supposed to be inspiring? It's supposed to be honest. His hand slid down her arms, his touch warm. You're not alone in this. I meant what I said about wanting more than just a professional alliance. Kira's breath caught. Darian, I know the timing is terrible. I know we're both dealing with impossible situations, but I need you to know. He paused, seeming to struggle for words. These past 3 weeks, fighting rebellion and chaos. The only thing that kept me going was knowing I'd see you again, knowing you were here, building something better. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone. I know. And if you want me to back off, to keep this purely professional, I will. But I had to tell you. Had to be honest about. Kira kissed him. She didn't plan it, didn't think about consequences or complications. She just rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his, silencing his words with action. For a heartbeat, the Alpha King froze. Then his arms came around her, pulling her close. And he was kissing her back with an intensity that stole her breath. It was nothing like she'd imagined. It was better. Desperate and tender and fierce all at once. His hands tangled in her hair, her fingers gripped his shirt, and for one perfect moment, the world narrowed to just this, just them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the Alpha King rested his forehead against hers. Well, he said roughly. That's one way to answer. I'm tired of being careful, Kira whispered. Tired of hiding what I feel. 7 years of that was enough. Then don't hide. Not from me. His silver eyes burned into hers. Whatever this is between us, we face it head on. Together. Together, Kira agreed. They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, stealing a few precious seconds of peace. Then reality crashed back in. I can only stay 3 days, the Alpha King said regretfully. There's trouble brewing in the Western Territory, reports of rogue activity, border skirmishes. I need to investigate. Of course, the kingdom needs you. But I'll come back, as often as I can, and in the meantime. He pulled a small device from his pocket. Communication crystal. Linked to one I carry. You can reach me anytime, anywhere. No more intercepted messages. Kira took the crystal smooth and warm in her palm. Thank you. Don't thank me, just. He cupped her face gently. Just keep being brave. Keep fighting. And know that you have an entire kingdom backing you now. Not just Thornwood. No pressure then. None at all. His smile was soft, genuine. Come on. Let's go face your pack council and tell them their alpha is not only competent, but also has the full support of the crown. They walked back together, hand in hand, and Kira felt something settle in her chest. She wasn't alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, she could actually do this. The pack council meeting was tense but productive. The Alpha King's presence legitimized Kira's authority in a way nothing else could. Even the dissidents grudgingly accepted that fighting her meant fighting the crown. Over the next 3 days, the Alpha King helped Kira restructure Thornwood's leadership, establish new protocols, and train a group of young wolves to serve as her personal guard. But mostly, they stole moments together. Private conversations that stretched late into the night, walks through the territory where they could just be 2 wolves, not Alpha and King. Kisses that grew bolder, more urgent, as the reality of his departure loomed. On the morning he left, Kira stood in the courtyard and watched him prepare to ride out. I'll be back in 2 weeks, he promised. Sooner, if possible. Be safe. Always. He leaned down from his horse and kissed her quick but fierce, not caring who saw. You be safe too. Trust your instincts, and if anything happens, use the crystal. I will. Then he was gone, disappearing down the road with his guard, and Kira was alone again, but this time, it felt different. This time, she had hope. Chapter 9. Shadows and Revelations. 2 weeks became 3. 3 became 4. The communication crystal stayed dark. Kira told herself not to worry. Told herself the Alpha King was busy, dealing with crises that required his full attention. Told herself the silence meant nothing. But in the quiet hours before dawn, when doubt crept in like fog, she couldn't help but wonder if Lydia had been right. If she'd been convenient, useful during a crisis, but ultimately forgettable once the Alpha King returned to his real life, his real priorities. She threw herself into leading Thornwood. The dissidents had mostly quieted after the Alpha King's visit, reduced to grumbling rather than active resistance. The pack's finances continued to stabilize. Crime remained low. By all measurable standards, she was succeeding. But success felt hollow when shared with no one. Alpha Kira. Petra entered the office, carrying a stack of reports. The latest census numbers. We've actually gained 3 families this month, wolves transferring from other packs because they heard about our reforms. That's good news. Kira forced a smile. Thank you, Petra. Petra set down the reports and studied Kira with concern. You haven't been sleeping. I've been busy. You've been waiting. Petra's voice was gentle. For him to come back, or at least to send word. Kira's hands stilled on the papers. Is it that obvious? Only to those of us who care about you. Petra moved to the window. The pack is thriving under your leadership, Alpha. But you're fading. Like part of you is somewhere else. I'm fine. You're lying. To me and to yourself. Petra turned to face her. What happened between you and the Alpha King? Kira was quiet for a long moment. Then, because she was tired of hiding, tired of carrying everything alone, I fell for him. Somewhere between fighting corruption and rebuilding this pack, I fell for him, and I think I thought he felt the same. But now he's gone and you're wondering if it was real. Yes. Yes. Petra crossed her arms. You know what I think? I think he's dealing with something he can't tell you about. Something that's keeping him away but isn't his choice. How can you possibly know that? Because I saw the way he looked at you before he left. Like you were the most precious thing in his kingdom. Petra's smile was sad. Men don't look at women like that, and then just forget about them. A knock at the door interrupted them. Commander Thorne entered, his expression grim. Alpha Kira, we have a situation. Kira's heart sank. What kind of situation? A messenger just arrived from the capital, the Alpha King. Thorne paused. He's been poisoned. He's alive, but incapacitated. The Royal Council is keeping it quiet to prevent panic. But Kira was on her feet before he finished. When? How? A week ago, an assassin infiltrated his guard during the Western Territory inspection. The poison is slow-acting, meant to weaken rather than kill outright. Thorne's voice was taut. The royal healers are doing everything they can, but the prognosis is uncertain. The world tilted. Kira gripped the edge of her desk to stay upright. Why wasn't I told immediately? The Royal Council wanted to contain information, limit who knew about the king's vulnerability. Thorne met her eyes. They're only telling allied alphas now because they need support. Need the territories to remain stable while the king recovers. I need to go to him. The words came out before Kira could think them through. You need to stay here. Thorne's voice was firm. Thornwood still needs you, and the capital is 3 days' hard ride. By the time I arrive, he could be dead. Kira's voice cracked. Don't you understand? I can't just sit here while... The communication crystal in her desk drawer suddenly flared to life, pulsing with warm light. Kira yanked it out, her hands shaking. The crystal projected a weak, flickering image. The Alpha King's face, pale and drawn. His silver eyes dimmed with exhaustion and pain. Kira. His voice was hoarse. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you sooner, but they wouldn't let me. Darian. Her throat was tight. What's happening? I'm alive, barely. A weak smile crossed his face. Apparently someone really doesn't want me reforming the territories. The poison is called Shadowbane. It's designed to weaken gifts, to make wolves like us vulnerable. Like us? Kira's mind raced. You mean gifted wolves? Yes. Someone knew what I knew that my gift is what makes me effective as king. They're trying to neutralize me without outright assassination. His image flickered, unstable. The healers say I'll recover, but it will take time. Weeks, maybe months. Then I'm coming to the capital. You shouldn't be alone. No. His voice was sharp, then softened. No, Kira. You need to stay in Thornwood. The territories are unstable. If word gets out that I'm compromised, there will be challenges, rebellions, chaos. I need the alphas I trust to hold their packs steady. I don't care about politics right now. I care about you. I know. The tenderness in his voice made her chest ache. But you're an alpha now. You have responsibilities that supersede personal feelings. Just like I do. The truth of it hit like a blade. This was the cost of power of leadership. Their feelings, their connection, would always come second to duty. How bad is it? She asked quietly. The truth. Darian's image wavered. Bad enough that I can barely hold this connection. Bad enough that I can't read lies anymore, can't use my gift at all. Bad enough that the Royal Council is already maneuvering for position, preparing for the possibility that I don't recover. Don't say that. I have to be realistic. And so do you. His silver eyes met hers through the flickering projection. If something happens to me, if I don't make it, don't. Kira's voice was fierce. Don't you dare give up. Don't you dare tell me to prepare for a future without you in it. A ghost of his usual smile. There's that fire. Hold on to it, Kira. Hold on to your strength. Because you're going to need it. What does that mean? It means the wolf who poisoned me is still out there. Still planning. And I don't think I was their only target. His expression turned grave. You exposed massive corruption in Thornwood. Made powerful enemies. If they're targeting gifted alphas, you could be next. Ice flooded Kira's veins. You think someone will come after me? I think you need to be very, very careful. Trust no one outside your inner circle. Increase your security. And his image flickered badly, the connection failing. Watch for Shadowbane symptoms. Weakness can't. The crystal went dark. Darian! Kira shook it frantically, but the light didn't return. Darian! Silence. Commander Thorn moved to her side. Alpha Kira. Someone tried to kill him. Someone poisoned the Alpha King, and now they might come after me. Kira's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. We need to increase security immediately. Double the guards, limit access to food and water supplies, screen everyone who enters the pack house. Already being done. I initiated protocols the moment I heard about the poisoning. Thorn's expression was grim. But there's something else you should know. What? The messenger who brought the news? He also delivered this. Thorn pulled out a sealed letter. From the Royal Council. It's not good news. Kira broke the seal and read. With each line, her blood ran colder. To Alpha Kira Thornwood, in light of His Majesty's incapacitation and the uncertain timeline for his recovery, the Royal Council has voted to implement temporary leadership measures. All Alpha appointments made in the last 3 months are hereby subject to review. Your position as Alpha of Thornwood Pack will be evaluated at the next council meeting in 2 weeks. You are required to appear before the council to defend your appointment and prove your capability to lead without the Alpha King's direct support. Failure to appear, or to meet the council's standards, will result in the appointment of a replacement Alpha from a more established bloodline. Signed, Lord Chancellor Gideon Blackwood, Regent Protector of the Realm. They're trying to remove me, Kira said flatly. The moment Darian is vulnerable, they're moving against everyone he appointed. It's a power play, Thorn agreed. Blackwood has always resented the king's reforms, thought they gave too much power to unworthy wolves. This is his chance to undo everything. Then we don't let him. Kira set the letter down. I'll go to the capital. I'll defend my position before the council. That's exactly what they want. They'll tear you apart in front of the other alphas, make an example of you to discourage others from supporting reform. Thorn shook his head. It's a trap, Alpha. You'd be walking into a rigged game. Then what do you suggest? I sit here and let them strip my authority without a fight? I suggest you fight smarter. Build alliances with other alphas the king appointed. Present a united front that the council can't easily dismiss. Thorn moved to the window. You're not alone in this. There are others who believe in what the Alpha King is trying to build. Find them. Unite them. Kira processed this, her mind racing. How many others did Darian appoint? 7 new alphas in the past 6 months. 3 female, 4 male. All of them unconventional choices, young, gifted, or from non-traditional bloodlines. Thorn turned back to her. If you can get even half of them on your side, the council will have a harder time dismissing all of you. And if they still try, then we remind them that the Alpha King's authority supersedes theirs, that his appointments stand until he personally revokes them. Thorn's smile was sharp. The law is on your side, Alpha. We just need to make sure you survive long enough to use it. Kira nodded slowly. All right, Send messages to the other new alphas. Request a meeting somewhere neutral, safe. We need to coordinate before the council hearing. Consider it done. As Thorn left, Petra moved closer. What can I do? Hold down the pack while I'm gone. Keep things stable. Watch for any signs of Shadowbane poisoning, weakness, loss of gifts, unusual illness. If you see anything suspicious, evacuate immediately and send word. You really think they'll attack Thornwood? I think they'll attack anyone who threatens their power. And right now, we're a very big threat. Kira gripped Petra's shoulders. Be careful. Trust your instincts, and if something happens to me, nothing will happen to you. But if it does, Kira continued firmly, the pack needs leadership. You've been learning, watching. You're stronger than you think. Petra's eyes widened. You want me to? I want you to be ready. For anything. Kira released her. Now go. Help Commander Thorn with the security measures. Alone in her office, Kira sank into her chair and stared at the dark crystal. Darian was dying. The council was moving against her. Unknown enemies were plotting in the shadows. Everything she'd built, everything they'd built together was falling apart. But she wasn't the silent shadow anymore. Wasn't the broken Omega hiding in the darkness. She was Alpha Kira Thornwood. And she would fight for what was hers, even if it killed her. Subscribe if Kira's determination resonates with you, the refusal to give up even when everything seems lost. Because the strongest wolves are forged in the darkest fires. Drop a comment. Would you stand and fight against impossible odds, or find another way to survive? The responses to Kira's messages came quickly. Of the 7 new alphas, 5 agreed to meet. 1 was already dead, killed in what officials called a hunting accident 2 weeks ago. The last, Alpha Helena of the Southern Pack, sent a cryptic response. Trust no one. They're watching. We'll try to attend but cannot guarantee safety. The meeting was set for neutral territory, an ancient gathering ground that predated the modern pack structure. Kira traveled with Commander Thorn and a small guard, leaving Petra in charge of Thornwood. The journey took 2 days. 2 days of watching the shadows, jumping at every sound, wondering if assassins lurked behind every tree. They arrived at sunset. The gathering ground was a circular clearing ringed by standing stones, each carved with symbols from the old language. 4 other groups were already there. Alpha Cade of the Eastern Pack was young, barely 25, with the gift of seeing paths forward, reading probability. He'd been appointed after exposing a conspiracy to sell pack secrets to rogues. Alpha Sarah of the Mountain Pack was a fierce woman in her 40s with the gift of truth-speaking, like Kira's grandmother. She'd been appointed after the previous Alpha died mysteriously, and she'd uncovered evidence of foul play. Alpha Finn of the River Pack was stocky and serious, with the gift of sensing danger before it struck. He'd been appointed after saving his entire pack from a rogue attack that turned out to be orchestrated by the old Alpha. Alpha Rin of the Coastal Pack was elegant and sharp, with the gift of reading memories from objects. They'd been appointed after solving a decades-old murder that had divided their pack. All of them were gifted. All of them were unconventional. All of them had exposed corruption. And now they were all targets. Thank you for coming, Kira said, addressing the group. I assume you all received the same summons from the Royal Council. Nods all around. Then you know what we're facing, Kira continued. The moment the Alpha King is incapacitated, they're moving to undo everything he's built, to remove anyone who threatens the old power structures. It's more than that, Alpha Sarah said, her voice grave. I've been investigating the poisoning. Shadowbane isn't a natural toxin, it's manufactured, created specifically to target gifted wolves. Someone has been planning this for a long time. How long? Alpha Cade asked. Years, possibly. The ingredients are rare, difficult to obtain. Whoever did this has resources, connections, and patience. Sarah looked at each of them. And they didn't just target the Alpha King. Alpha Thomas's death 2 weeks ago? I examined his body. He showed signs of Shadowbane poisoning. Shocked. Silence. They're killing us off, Alpha Finn said quietly. One by one, making it look like accidents or natural causes. But why? Alpha Rin demanded. What do they gain by eliminating gifted alphas? Control, Kira said, the pieces clicking together in her mind. Gifted wolves can sense lies, see truth, read intentions. We're threats to anyone who operates through deception. Remove us, and the old powers can manipulate without fear of exposure. So, what do we do? Alpha Cade looked around the circle. We can't fight the entire Royal Council, can't even prove they're behind this. We don't need to fight them. We need to outmaneuver them. Kira stepped forward. The council hearing in 2 weeks, they expect us to come alone, isolated, easy to dismiss. But what if we don't? What if all 5 of us show up together, with evidence of our accomplishments, with testimony from our packs? A united front, Alpha Sarah said slowly. Make it politically difficult for them to remove all of us without looking like they're staging a coup. Exactly. And more than that, we go public. We make the hearing open to all pack members, not just the elite. Let everyone see what the council is trying to do. Kira's voice grew stronger. The Alpha King built his power on transparency and justice. We use his own principles to defend what he created. It's risky, Alpha Finn said. If we miscalculate, if the council has more support than we think, then we're no worse off than we are now, Kira interrupted. They're already coming for us. At least this way, we go down fighting. The Alphas looked at each other. Then, one by one, they nodded. I'm in, Alpha Sarah said. And I? Alpha Cade agreed. The River Pack stands with you, Alpha Finn confirmed. As does the Coastal Pack, Alpha Rin added. Relief flooded through Kira. Thank you, all of you. Together, we... An arrow whistled through the air. It buried itself in the standing stone next to Kira's head, missing by inches. Ambush, Commander Thorn roared. Defensive positions. Figures emerged from the forest, masked, armed, moving with military precision. At least 20 of them. The assassins had found them, and now there was nowhere left to run. Chapter 10. The silent shadow roars. Chaos erupted in the clearing. Arrows flew like deadly rain. Steel clashed against steel as guards engaged the masked attackers. The air filled with snarls and screams, and the copper scent of blood. Kira dove behind a standing stone, her heart hammering. Around her, the other alphas were doing the same, scattering, taking cover, trying to organize defense against an enemy that had planned this perfectly. They knew we'd be here. Alpha Cade shouted from across the clearing. Someone told them. A traitor. One of them or someone in their inner circles had betrayed their meeting, but there was no time to figure out who. Only time to survive. Kira reached out with her gift, sensing the attackers' positions through their emotions. 20 assassins, spread in a wide circle. Professional, emotionless, trained to kill without hesitation, and in the center of their formation, directing them with hand signals, was a figure whose emotional signature she recognized. Cold. Calculating. Familiar. Lydia, Kira breathed. Her half-sister stepped into the clearing, no longer hiding behind a mask. She held a crossbow, and her smile was vicious. Surprise, sister, Lydia called out. Did you really think I'd let you destroy everything our family built without fighting back? Your family built nothing but corpses, Kira shouted back. How many wolves have you killed for them, Lydia? How far are you willing to go? As far as necessary. Lydia aimed her crossbow. You took everything from me. My father, my mother, my future. Now I'm taking it back, starting with your life. The bolt flew. Commander Thorn threw himself in front of Kira. The bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He went down hard. No. Kira dropped beside him, her hands going to the wound. Blood poured between her fingers. Thorn, stay with me. Go, he gasped. The crystal, call him, needs to know. The communication crystal. Still in her pocket, Kira pulled it out with blood-slicked hands. It was cracked, damaged in the chaos, but maybe, just maybe, she focused everything she had into it. All her fear, all her desperation, all her need. Darian, please. If you can hear this, we need you. The crystal flickered weakly. No image formed. But she felt something, a distant presence, responding. Kira? His voice was barely a whisper in her mind. What's happening? Ambush, The new alphas. They're trying to kill us all. Where? The old gathering grounds. Northern Territory. Darien. There are too many. Hold on. Strength flowed into his voice, even weak as he was. I'm coming. You can't. You're barely able to stand. I said I'm coming. The connection cut off. An assassin lunged at Kira from the side. She rolled, narrowly avoiding the blade, and came up swinging. Her fist connected with his jaw, satisfying crunch, and he went down. But 3 more were converging on her position. Then Alpha Sarah was there, moving like liquid death. Her blade flashed, and 2 assassins fell. Get up, Alpha Kira. We're not dying here. Kira scrambled to her feet. Around the clearing, the tide was turning. The Alphas were fighting back with gifts and skill and desperate fury. Alpha Finn sensed attacks before they landed, calling out warnings. Alpha Cade saw paths forward, directing defensive positions. Alpha Rin read the assassins' weapons, knowing which were poisoned, which were safe to block. And Kira? Kira could feel everything, every emotion, every intention, every moment of hesitation or doubt. She reached out with her gift, not just sensing, but pushing, amplifying the assassins' doubts, their fears, their hesitation, making them question their orders, their purpose. 3 assassins froze mid-attack, confusion flooding their minds. Why am I doing this? Who am I killing for? Lydia saw what was happening. Don't listen to her, she's manipulating you, kill them. But the seeds of doubt had been planted. 2 assassins lowered their weapons. 1 turned and fled into the forest. You've lost, Lydia, Kira called out. Your assassins are questioning their orders. Your plan is falling apart. Surrender now, and I'll show you mercy. Mercy? Lydia's laugh was unhinged. Like the mercy you showed my parents? No. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. She raised her crossbow again, not at Kira this time, but at Commander Thorn, still bleeding on the ground. Drop your gift, or I kill him. Now. Kira's blood ran cold. She could feel Thorn's life slipping away. He wouldn't survive another wound. She released her hold on the assassins' minds. Immediately they snapped back into focus, raised their weapons, closed in. Good girl, Lydia purred. Now kneel. All of you, or I start executing your wounded. The Alphas looked at each other. They were outnumbered, outmaneuvered. If they fought now, people would die. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to kneel. Kira felt despair washing over her. They'd fought so hard, come so far, and it was all ending here, in blood and betrayal. A howl split the night. Not just one howl. Dozens. Hundreds. The forest erupted with movement. Wolves poured into the clearing, royal guards in silver armor, warriors from every territory, and at their head, mounted on a massive black horse, was the Alpha King. He looked like death riding. Pale, swaying in the saddle, barely able to stay upright. But his silver eyes blazed with fury, and his voice carried the weight of absolute command. Stand down, all of you, by order of your king. The assassins froze. Even Lydia's crossbow wavered. You're supposed to be dying, Lydia whispered. I was. The Alpha King dismounted, nearly collapsed, but caught himself. Then I heard my mate was in danger. Funny how that can motivate a wolf to get out of bed. Mate. The word hung in the air. Kira's breath caught. Darien had just claimed her publicly, before witnesses, before the entire gathered force. That wasn't just a declaration, it was a political statement, an unbreakable bond. The game is over, Lady Lydia, the Alpha King continued, each word clearly costing him effort. Your assassins are surrounded, your conspiracy is exposed, and you've just attempted to murder 5 Alphas under my protection. His smile was cold. I'd say your family's losing streak continues. Lydia's face contorted with rage and desperation. Then I'll die taking her with me. She fired the crossbow. The bolt flew straight at Kira's heart. Time seemed to slow. Kira saw it coming, knew she couldn't dodge, accepted that this was how it ended. The Alpha King moved. Despite his weakness, despite the poison still coursing through his veins, he moved with impossible speed, positioned himself between Kira and the bolt, It caught him in the chest. He went down hard. "Darian!" Kira's scream tore from her throat. She was beside him in an instant, her hands going to the wound. Blood, so much blood, poured around the bolt shaft. "No, no, no," her voice broke. "You can't, you promised you'd." "Kira." His hand came up weakly to touch her face. "It's okay." "It's not okay. You're dying because of me. Worth it." His smile was soft, genuine. "To keep you safe. Worth everything." Around them, the royal guards were subduing the assassins. Someone was shouting for healers. But Kira couldn't look away from Darian's face, couldn't stop the blood pouring through her fingers. "Stay with me," she begged. "Please. I can't do this without you." "Yes, you can." His voice was fading. "You're the strongest wolf I know. You'll lead. Rebuild. Make everything better. Not without you." Tears streamed down her face. "We were supposed to have more time. We were supposed to." His hand dropped. His eyes closed. The bond between them, the mate bond she'd barely had time to feel, went dark, and Kira's world shattered. She threw her head back and howled a sound of pure grief, pure rage, pure devastating loss. It echoed through the clearing, through the forest, carrying all her pain to the uncaring sky. Then something strange happened. Her gift, the ability to sense emotions, to hear thoughts, suddenly exploded outward, not just sensing but connecting. She felt every wolf in the clearing, felt their shock and grief and fear. And beneath it all, she felt something else. A spark, faint but present. Darian's life force, still there, barely, weakly, but not gone. Not yet. Kira pressed her hands harder against his chest. "No, I'm not letting you go. Not like this." She reached deeper with her gift than she'd ever dared before. Into the pack bond, into the connections between wolves, into the very essence of what made them more than just animals. And she pulled life force from the wolves around her, not taking, but borrowing, channeling their strength through herself and into Darian. Dozens of wolves, all lending a piece of their vitality to save their king. Light blazed from her hands, gold and silver mixing, pack magic and something older. Something from before the modern world tried to tame it. "What's she doing?" someone whispered. "Old magic." Alpha Sarah breathed. "The kind we thought was lost." The light intensified. Kira felt herself burning from the inside, felt her gift expanding beyond anything she'd thought possible. This was more than sensing emotions. This was manipulating life itself. The crossbow bolt began to glow. Then it dissolved, just turned to ash and blew away. The wound in Darian's chest began to close. Tissue knitting, blood staunching, poison burning away in the golden light. Kira held on, pouring everything she had into him. Every ounce of strength, every fragment of power, every piece of her soul. "Live," she commanded. "You will live. I'm not done with you yet." Darian's eyes snapped open, silver and brilliant and alive. He gasped, drawing in a huge breath. His hand came up to cover hers, still pressed against his healed chest. "Kira," he said hoarsely. "What did you do?" The light faded. Kira collapsed beside him, completely drained. "Saved you, obviously. That was." He looked around at the assembled wolves, all staring in awe. "That was beyond anything I've ever seen. Your mate is full of surprises, Your Majesty," Alpha Sarah said with a slight smile. Darian looked back at Kira. "My mate. Yes." His hand tightened on hers. "Thank you. For saving my life. For being exactly who you are. Thank me by not getting shot again," Kira said weakly. Commander Thorne, now being tended by healers, laughed from nearby. "I don't think you'll need to, Alpha. I think everyone here just learned not to cross the wolf who can literally steal life and death." Around the clearing, the captured assassins were being bound. Lydia knelt in chains, her face a mask of hatred. "It's over," the Alpha King said, his voice growing stronger with each word. "The conspiracy, the assassinations, the attempt to undo the reforms, all of it ends here." He looked at each of the Alphas. "You 5 have proven yourselves beyond any doubt. Your positions are secure, and anyone who questions that answers to me personally. What about the Royal Council? Alpha Kate asked. Lord Chancellor Blackwood will be arrested the moment I return to the capital. I've been gathering evidence while I recovered. He's the one who arranged for the Shadowbane poison. He's been orchestrating everything. The Alpha King's smile was sharp. He thought I was too weak to investigate. He was wrong. He stood, still shaky but determined, and pulled Kira to her feet beside him. There will be no council hearing, no review of appointments. The reforms stand. The new alphas stand. And anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me directly. His silver eyes swept the gathered wolves. Any takers? Silence. No one was stupid enough to challenge him. Not after what they'd just witnessed. Good. Then let's go home. The Alpha King turned to Kira. All of us. 3 months later, the coronation ceremony was held at the capital, but representatives from all 5 territories attended. It was the largest gathering of wolves in a generation. Kira stood before the assembled crowd, wearing the formal robes of an Alpha Queen. Not just Alpha of Thornwood anymore, but officially recognized as the Alpha King's mate and co-ruler. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind. Arrests of the conspirators. Trials for the assassins. Lydia's exile to the outer territories where she could do no harm. The complete restructuring of the Royal Council to prevent future coups. And through it all, Kira had stood beside Darian, learning to lead not just a pack but an entire kingdom. Do you, Kira Thornwood, swear to uphold the laws of the 5 territories? The High Priestess intoned. To lead with wisdom, to judge with fairness, to protect the innocent and punish the guilty? I do, Kira said, her voice clear and strong. Then by the authority vested in me by ancient law and sacred tradition, I proclaim you Alpha Queen of the 5 territories. The priestess placed a silver circlet on Kira's head. May your reign be long and just. The crowd erupted in cheers. Darian stepped forward and took her hand. How does it feel? Terrifying. Surreal. Right. Kira smiled. Same as always. Good, because I have one more surprise for you. He led her to the edge of the platform, where they could see the crowd below. And there, in the front row, stood wolves Kira recognized. Petra, now Beta of Thornwood Pack, the Omegas who'd supported her from the beginning, Commander Thorn, fully recovered. The 4 other new Alphas who'd fought beside her, her pack, her people, her family, not by blood, but by choice. They came to witness your coronation, Darian said softly. Every one of them traveled here to support you, to show the kingdom that you didn't rise through luck or manipulation. You rose because wolves believe in you. Kira's throat tightened with emotion. I don't deserve them. You do, more than anyone I've ever met. Darian turned her to face him. 7 years ago, you lost your voice, but you never lost yourself. And now? Now the entire kingdom will hear you roar. Is that supposed to be inspiring? Because it's a little dramatic. It's supposed to be true. His silver eyes held hers. I love you, Kira Thornwood. Silent Shadow turned Alpha Queen. The wolf who saved my life and my kingdom. I love you too, Kira whispered, even when you're being impossibly dramatic. He kissed her then, in front of the entire kingdom, and the crowd roared their approval. When they finally broke apart, Darian gestured to the assembled wolves. Shall we address our subjects, my queen? Together? Always together. They stood side by side, looking out over a kingdom that had been broken and was now healing, over territories that had been divided and were now united, over wolves who had been silenced and were now free. Kira thought of her grandmother, her mother, all the wolves who'd been killed for being different, for being gifted, for being threats to corrupt power. This is for you, she thought. This victory, this change, this future. Then she opened her mouth and spoke, not to hide anymore, not to pretend, but to lead. Wolves of the 5 territories, she called out, her voice carrying to every corner of the great square. For too long, power in our lands has been held by those who rule through fear and corruption. For too long, gifted wolves have been hunted and killed for being different. For too long, strength has been confused with tyranny. The crowd was silent, listening. That ends now, Kira continued. The old ways, the ways of silence and submission and hiding who we are, those ways are dead. In their place, we build something new. A kingdom where gifts are celebrated, not feared. Where leadership is earned through deed and honor, not birth and brutality. Where every wolf has a voice, from the highest alpha to the lowest omega. Cheers erupted. It won't be easy, Kira said. Change never is. There will be those who resist, who fight to return to the old ways, but we will stand together. We will protect each other, and we will build a future worthy of the wolves who came before us, the ones who were silenced but never broken. She looked at Darian. He nodded, pride shining in his eyes. The silent shadow has found her roar, Kira said, and she will never be silent again. The crowd exploded with approval, howls and cheers, and the sound of thousands of wolves celebrating not just a coronation, but a revolution. Kira smiled, feeling the weight of the crown on her head, the warmth of Darian's hand in hers, the strength of her people supporting her. 7 years of hiding, 7 years of survival, 7 years of silence. And now, finally, a voice that could shake kingdoms. The broken Omega had become a queen, and her reign had only just begun. Epilogue. IMCAM-esque. 1 year later. The nursery in the royal palace was painted in soft silvers and golds. Moonlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the crib where 2 infants slept, twins. A boy and a girl, both with silver eyes that already showed signs of powerful gifts. Kira stood over them, her hand resting on her still flat stomach where a 3rd child was beginning to grow. The healers said this pregnancy would be different triplets this time, all gifted. You're supposed to be sleeping, Darian's voice came from the doorway. So are you. Kira turned to smile at him. But we're both terrible at following orders. He moved to stand beside her, wrapping an arm around her waist. Our children are going to be absolute terrors. Gifted, stubborn, and raised by wolves who overthrew the old order. I can't wait. Kira leaned into him. Though I'm slightly terrified of what 5 gifted children will do to this palace. They'll tear it apart and rebuild it better, just like their mother. Darian kissed her temple. How's Thornwood? Thriving. Petra sent the quarterly reports yesterday. Crime is still low, prosperity is up, and we've had applications from 6 more families wanting to transfer in. Kira's smile widened. Even some of the old traditionalists have come around. Apparently, results speak louder than bloodlines. Imagine that. Darian's tone was dry. Who would have thought treating wolves with dignity and fairness would work better than ruling through fear? Certainly not Lord Chancellor Blackwood. How's he enjoying exile? Probably about as much as Lydia is. Last I heard, they're both in the outer reaches, far from any position of power. Darian's expression turned serious. Though I still worry. Exiled wolves have a way of holding grudges. Let them hold grudges. Kira turned in his arms. We've built something strong here. Something that can withstand threats. And if they come for us again, we'll face them the same way we faced everything else together. Together, Darian agreed. He pulled her closer. Have I mentioned today how grateful I am that you spilled tea on Lydia? Kira laughed. That was a tactical masterpiece. Admit it. It was reckless and painful and completely necessary. He smiled. Like most of your plans. Our plans. We're partners in this, remember? How could I forget? You remind me every time I try to make a unilateral decision. Because unilateral decisions are how tyrants think. We're better than that. Darian studied her face. The face that had once been hidden beneath layers of deception, now open and free and powerful. Yes, he said softly. We are. One of the twins stirred, making a small noise. Kira moved to the crib, gently rocking it until the infant settled back into sleep. They're going to change the world, she said quietly. Our children. They'll grow up in a kingdom where being gifted isn't a death sentence, where being different is celebrated, where voices matter more than bloodlines. A kingdom you helped build. Darian joined her at the crib, the silent shadow who learned to roar. Not just me. All of us. The 5 new alphas, the reformed packs, every wolf who chose to believe in something better. Kira looked up at him. We did this together. All of us. Then let's make sure it lasts. For them. Darian gestured to the sleeping twins. For every gifted pup who'll be born into a world that doesn't fear them. For every Omega who'll know they can rise as high as their courage takes them. Deal. Kira took his hand. Now come on. We both need sleep before these three wake up demanding breakfast. You mean in approximately 2 hours? Approximately. Kira grinned. Welcome to parenthood, Your Majesty. They left the nursery hand in hand, closing the door softly behind them. Behind them, the twins slept peacefully, unaware that their parents had changed the world to make it safer for them, unaware that their mother had once been voiceless and invisible and broken, unaware that she'd found her strength in silence and her power in truth. The silent shadow was gone. In her place stood Alpha Queen Kira, voice of the voiceless, champion of the gifted, and living proof that the most dangerous wolves are the ones you underestimate. Her story had begun in silence, but it would echo through generations, a roar that would never be forgotten. The end. If Kira's journey from silence to strength moved you, if her transformation from invisible to unstoppable inspired you, then this story found its purpose. Because every wolf, every person has a roar inside them. Sometimes it just takes the right moment, the right pain, the right reason to let it out. Thank you for witnessing Kira's rise from the shadows to the throne. May you find your own voice when the world tries to silence you. May you stand when they tell you to kneel. And may you always remember, the strongest roars come from those who've learned to survive in silence. The silent shadow has spoken, and she will never be quiet again. Thank you for experiencing Kira's journey from the silent shadow to Alpha Queen. If her story of finding her voice after betrayal resonated with you, you might find value in How to Find Peace After Being Betrayed by Someone You Trusted, A Woman's Path to Letting Go and Reclaiming Her Power. This book provides practical steps for processing betrayal and rebuilding trust, reclaiming your personal power after deep hurt, finding peace and moving forward with strength, transforming pain into purpose. Just like Kira learned to roar after 7 years of silence, you too can find your voice again. Check the link in the description below. May you find your strength, reclaim your power, and never let anyone silence your roar again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it.